Welcome, everyone, to the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect. My name's Jared Mello, and I'm the Shepherd of Black Sheep. Friendly reminder, wizards are never late. They are only arriving when they are supposed to. Not late nor early. And I see there's a bunch of people in the chat already. Kat, Heather, Rose, Brenda, Maureen. Welcome, everybody. Today, we're going to go over what we missed yesterday, which turned out to be not that much anyway. But yesterday, what they were doing was they were searching through septic tanks, apparently. What they found, we don't really know yet. Also to note, all of the agents that were taking pictures in Annie Guthrie's house, they had permission to be there. The family knew that, which makes it seem like that wasn't a search warrant situation. It seems like more of, no, the family wanted them to do that. Savannah Guthrie has another video that we're going to go over. Brian Entin just posted a video a couple hours ago that we're going to go over first. How is everyone today? Yes, Lisa, you know I'm not late nor early, only on time. Hot Tamales knows that, as does Danielle and Kat and Jolly and Ellie and George. God help George. We don't want to give him another demerit. We don't want OGs getting demerits around here, you know. But what else? That's really it, though, in terms of the new news. We're going to see. The sheriff came out with another statement, and other people are speculating, oh, inside job or not. I really don't know at this point. I don't know. At first, I thought, yes, the son-in-law certainly seems plausible, but now I just don't know. Bella, welcome. Boss lady, welcome. Yeah, I missed everybody yesterday. I didn't feel like myself not coming live on here for 3 hours. I was like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do without the flock of black sheep here? And instead, I got to watch the Patriots lose yesterday. But I did get to spend time with my brother and his family, which was good. He's got 3 little girls. The littlest one, she really likes me, and she calls me Uncle Dad. Can you believe it? Ah, welcome. Arkansas in the chat. What's time off, Brenda? I don't know what that is. What is this time off you speak of? Don't forget, how are you? Yes, welcome. Welcome, Misha. She knows how to say Uncle Jared, but she doesn't. She says, Uncle Dad, Uncle Dad. Yeah, that's probably about it, Brenda. I usually one night, Sunday night. But usually 5 or 6 nights a week I'm streaming. Kat and Danielle know. And everyone else that's been here knows too. Here's the thing about it. I'll give you some self-help advice here. It's all about getting into the pattern. And this is why I do the lives too, because there was a time when I was doing a lot of interviews and shorts about narcissism, longer recorded videos about narcissism, but none of them scared me anymore. Like I wasn't challenged doing it. Now, of course, you can always improve. I could have improved my longer form videos. And even interviews, though, they weren't challenging for me. But what was challenging was lives. And I thought to myself, well, a lot of people don't do lives. And I think I'll challenge myself to do more of them, to get comfortable on the screen. Because it used to be a time I would be super awkward. I'd be super awkward and I wouldn't feel comfortable while the camera button was on. It's one thing recording it, but having no buffer, like right now when it's live, I just was more awkward. It was more like icky. So I challenged myself to do it more. And I said, what you don't want to do, Jared, is probably what you should be doing. And so I did it, and I did it, and I did it. And here I am. It seems to have gone pretty well. So the lesson here is the fear. What you fear, you lean into and you try to work on it. I was telling my other niece the other day, the fears you don't face become your limitations. So, and usually the things that scare us, they're on the right track. We're on the right track when we push into that and say, okay, why am I scared of this? Why am I dreading it? Let me try to do it. So that's the self-help lesson for the day. Yes, it does, Kat. That's, in fact, priceless when there's a good group of people in the chat. Without them, I wouldn't be doing this. That can't be forgotten. So I'm very grateful to the flock of black sheep. This is a two-way thing here, right? It's not just me talking, it's everyone else here too. Hot tamales, thank you. Breaking the seal. Make it rain, y'all. I love it. Great way to start, Hot Tamales. I appreciate that. All right. Let's hop into our buddy Brian here and see what he has to say for himself.
Hey guys, thanks so much for checking out my show. Really, really appreciate it. I appreciate all the support. I've been seeing all your messages. Thank you so much. Please click to subscribe. Of course, I'm still here in Arizona, in Tucson, outside Nancy Guthrie's house. The mystery just seems to deepen. I mean, there's a lot of everybody's asking me. I mean, friends who I haven't heard from in like years are texting me, what's going on with the case?
I'll make a deal with you, Hot Ham. Tonight's going to be the last night I go over it for now, unless something really important happens tomorrow. How about that? So tomorrow night, I'll talk about something else, unless something really important happens. I'm talking about this today because I didn't talk about it yesterday, and I kind of want to close the loop, at least temporarily. So how about that?
I mean, my mom is texting me constantly. What do you know that we don't know? I mean, honestly, it's still very mysterious about what is actually going on behind the scenes and what police may know and what they may not know. And is there a possibility that police literally don't know anything and that they're following up on different leads, but they have nothing concrete? That is possible, especially after what Savannah Guthrie said in her latest video that she just posted to Instagram, asking the public for help. Listen to what Savannah said.
Hi there, everybody. I wanted to come on and just share a few thoughts as we enter into another week of this nightmare. I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for all of the prayers and the love that we have felt, my sister and brother and I, and that our mom has felt. Because we believe that somehow, some way, she is feeling these prayers and that God is lifting her even in this moment and in this darkest place. We believe our mom is still out there. We need your help. Law enforcement is working tirelessly around the clock, trying to bring her home, trying to find her. She was taken and we don't know where. And we need your help. So I'm coming on just to ask you, not just for your prayers, but no matter where you are, even if you're far from Tucson, if you see anything, if you hear anything, if there's anything at all that seems strange to you, that you report to law enforcement. We are at an hour of desperation, and we need your help.
So pretty clear that Savannah.
So again, I mean, the ransom deadline came and went. It was 5 o'clock today, Arizona time. Nothing happened. So at this point, what are they trying to do? What are the people that took her? What's their goal now? I mean, as far as we know, no money was sent. They didn't give proof of life. So now what? Like, what was this whole thing about? I'm just confused now because, I mean, why kill an 84-year-old woman? I mean, revenge? Like, I don't know. I really don't know about this. And also to note, we're talking about this again because, yeah, I have been getting a lot of views talking about this, and I don't want to kind of blow it because this has been going pretty good. At the same time, I don't want to bore people either.
Is saying that they still need help finding Nancy. And she said, we are in an hour of desperation and we need your help. She said it several times. We need your help. And it seemed more genuine, should I say? I mean, not that Savannah's ever not genuine, but, you know, you could tell that some of those first videos that looked almost more like hostage videos with her and her siblings, that they were very much crafted in part by the FBI. And it seemed like this video was more just off the cuff and sort of the Savannah Guthrie that we all feel like we know from the Today Show and just from her social media. It seemed more just like her and genuine. So
thank you for this, Arwen. Turns out her son-in-law is Clinton connected. So Savannah's son-in-law or Nancy's? Savannah also interviewed Virginia Guthrie. Why do I know Virginia Guthrie? You know, anything's possible, Armin. Thank you very much for that.
The fact that she's saying they need help makes you wonder where things stand. Of course, there have been these letters that have come in, which I've talked about, and I'll kind of just go back for you and give you a little bit of the backstory before. I'm going to talk to retired FBI agent Steve Moore in a minute, which you're going to hear, and it was a really interesting conversation, especially what he had to say about the search that we saw happening at Annie Guthrie's house, which is...
And here's the thing, and law enforcement doesn't like letting you know this, but it's not going to be declared a murder until there's a body. Has there ever been one where they don't find a body? Let me know, chat, if there has been one. But as far as I know, if they can't find you, you're missing. They'll say you're presumed dead, but I don't think there's this magical cutoff where they say, okay, you've been missing for 6 months. We know you're dead. I haven't seen it happen. And let's face it also, if the son-in-law is not a suspect, as Asheligh Banfield said, that her source in law enforcement said, there's really no suspects outside of that. A stone cold whodunit. Mind-boggling. Mind-boggling that it can still happen in this day and age.
Savannah's sister. So that's coming in a second. But let me just go back to the letters, tell you everything that I know. First letter...
And Arwen's answering the question. Thank you again, Arwen. Virginia is Jeffrey Epstein's, and Savannah's mom is a Clinton Connect via fam. So Virginia is Jeffrey Epp. Jeffrey Epp's what? Okay. Thank you, Arwen.
We found out about Tuesday of last week. I believe that Savannah was told about it based on sources that I have on Monday night of last week. And in that letter... that is when there were the specifics about things at the house, the Apple iWatch, and the floodlight. And also there was the ransom. There was pay us $4 million by Thursday at 5 p.m. Or pay us $6 million by Monday. Those were the deadlines. Then came the second letter at the end of the week, which we know went to KOLD TV, which the news director was very clear to say is not a ransom letter. There was no demand for money in that letter, from what I have been told. But there was a very specific message in that letter that related back.
Okay, that's why I knew the name. Virginia Guthrie is an Epstein victim.
Back to the previous letter, which sort of connected the two. And I am told it was a grim message.
Thank you very much, Arwen. You read my mind with that. So yeah, Jeffrey's main victim that led the charge said, yes, sad interview. Thank you, Arwen.
Which could explain why Savannah Guthrie was just so sad and said, we've received your this in her message before this most recent one. In this, remember this message. Look at this message.
We received your message and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us.
And again, people are saying the celebrate with her might imply they think she's passed and they mean celebrating her life. I would say maybe. Maybe. I'm not going to say definitively. Maybe.
And we will pay.
So that was clearly, or at least appears to be, Savannah reacting to the second note that came in. And now the tone seems to have changed again, which makes me wonder, is there a possibility, and I think there is a possibility, that these ransom notes are unrelated to what's really going on here, that these ransom notes are just some jerk somewhere trying to extort money out of the Guthries, and that what really happened to Nancy may have nothing to do with whoever's writing the ransom letters. I think that is a possibility based on everything that I'm hearing. I don't think that that's for sure. They wouldn't have made Savannah create those emotional videos if they didn't believe that there was a possibility that those letters were legit. But just based on Savannah's most recent video, asking the public for help, it makes me wonder, based on all these other things that I know, if the ransom letters have nothing to do with the actual disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. And they still may. They still may. So little backtrack just of what happened over the weekend. If you missed my previous episode, then I'm going to get into Steve, where the real new stuff is. But over the weekend, Friday night, we of course saw the big FBI search here at the house where they closed the roads. Saturday night, we saw the 3 deputies show up to Savannah's sister's house. Annie Guthrie showed up there late at night. We're there for 3 hours taking pictures inside the house. And what I'm going to ask Steve about, which is so interesting, is now.
So, Hot Ham, I hear what you're saying, and people are saying, well, look at all the people and children that go missing every day. The only difference is they're not famous. That's why it doesn't get coverage. And you're right. You're absolutely correct. Now, why does it happen? Well, I mean, for people like me, it turns into more of the business, right? If I talk about Joe Schmo, unfortunately, no one's going to care. So I get it. And so I try to make the best of it, though, and pull other lessons out of it that can really help it. And so, like, I can do what I need to do, but also try to make it a learning opportunity for others as well. But I get it. I get it. It's not fair that the random people don't get the same kind of coverage. That's just life, though, right? Something happens to a celebrity, it's going to get more coverage. It just is what it is.
NBC News is reporting that the Guthrie family consented to that search at Annie's house.
Yes, so they consented to the search. That's important too. Thank you for this, Arwen. Witness intimidation. And for the Epstein case or this case?
We went to the courthouse looking for the warrants related to that, and we were told there are no warrants. Now, could they just be sealed? Sorry, this is my IFB, by the way, for my TV job, if you're wondering what that is, hanging by my neck, which is how you like listen to the anchors. But we were told there were no warrants, and you're going to hear Steve explain it, but it's unusual if they were really suspicious of something that happened at Annie Guthrie's house, that they would just go with consent and not also get a warrant. And Steve will explain why. I'm joined now by
So that's what I was mentioning before, that the Guthrie family gave consent to be searching Annie's home like that. And I don't think it was a search warrant. Maybe when you have consent, you don't need one, I guess. Maybe the Guthrie family is trying to show transparency. I don't know. But let's see what he has to say, Brian's guest.
Steve Moore, retired FBI agent.
Steve Moore, retired FBI agent.
We've been talking about this case a lot for the last, week, and I can't believe it's now more than a week, Steve. And we've got this deadline, the second deadline, and I've learned the first deadline of last Thursday was for $4 million. This deadline, they said $6 million. What do you think is happening right now? I mean, that's what everybody wants. It's quiet right now. What do you think is going on behind the scenes?
Yeah, it's only quiet where you're standing, because somewhere they are getting ready to transmit ransom. And this is going to be tough because you have to come up with $6 million cash. Doesn't matter how much you're worth. I mean, most people who are wealthy have their money invested or tied up in assets, things like that. It's going to take a lot of work to free up $6 million and then get it into a means to transmit it to Bitcoin. So there is a lot of work going on, and the FBI is also preparing for the payment of, and a lot's going on.
The FBI special agent in charge made clear the other day that, at the end of the day, it's up to the family whether they pay the ransom and whether they release these messages, and they guide them, but it's their decision.
Right.
If you were working the case and working with them, I mean, what would you be telling them right now behind the scenes?
I would be like the agent in charge there, telling him it's your decision. I would be, however, my every bit of the wisdom that I had, every bit of the experience I had, and giving them giving them advice based on that, not binding advice, obviously. And there's a lot going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. And those things are going to affect what the FBI is going to recommend. I don't see any indication here of any divide between the FBI and the family, which is always a risk. The FBI says if you do this, if you don't pay, or if you do pay, it's the worst possible scenario. And the family says, I'm going to do opposite because I just have a feeling, or I'm going to pay because I don't, and this is legitimate, I don't want to go to my deathbed thinking I didn't pay, and that might have been the reason that we never saw her again.
Do you think, though, they're advising them to pay? I mean, at the end of the day, are they saying, yeah, you should pay?
Again, I wouldn't pay a dime unless there's proof of life. Why would you ever pay a dime unless there's proof of life? If there's proof of life, I think maybe I would pay if there's proof of life. If there's not proof of life and maybe she's passed away already, I mean, what the heck? I mean, what are you paying for now? To be able to have a funeral? I mean, I get it. It's symbolic at that point, but still, it's not the same. It's not the same as if there's actually proof of life here.
Only because I see that there appears to be no division. So the fact that the Guthries have said they're going to pay, and there's been no inkling of any.
Correct. Thank you for this, Arwin. Arwin says, imagine what is at stake with the Epstein case, upcoming hearings. They bank on distrusting our gut. They are sending a message to the other witnesses. So for those who don't know, Clinton, Bill, and Hillary Clinton are testifying at some point, and they want it to be public. I know I think some people didn't want it to be public, but they want it to be public. They're trying to be a little more maybe transparent, but some people are saying, oh, maybe this is a witness intimidation thing. Maybe. I'm not ruling it out, but I don't know. Thank you again, Arwin.
Disagreement on law enforcement's part, that would tell me that the totality of the circumstances is telling the Bureau that it would be wiser to pay at this point. I'm kind of like the play-by-play at a football game. I'm telling you what I can't tell you what play I'd call because I don't see the defense, but I can tell you that what I'm seeing is they've decided that the best play is to pay the ransom.
And if they pay, could that help the FBI in any way? Like, you always hear that it's not traceable with Bitcoin, but does it open up another avenue to at least investigate?
Yeah, no, it's not true that it's not traceable. The FBI in some of these malware scams where they hold companies hostage to get their data back, the FBI's gotten something like $23 billion back from Bitcoin, and it gives them opportunities. I mean, they go in and they find a company or a scam artist who's doing this. They will frequently go in and take everything. So the FBI is not unable for your double negative day, they are not unable to recover money here, but there are some very specific things that they need to do and to make this happen, and those things have to be in place. And again, I would say that they're delivering the ransom, even electronically, gives the Bureau more information and more of a chance to catch somebody than by millions of miles than by not paying.
Okay, 1 second. Hey, Allison, can you go on mute?
Ooh.
Sorry, I'm in the courthouse.
It's okay, I figured. What's the other thing I was going to ask? Let me just get back to my train of thought. So did you see, you saw Savannah's last message where she said,
yes,
we've received your message and we understand and we will pay. What did you make of that? Because there are different theories floating around.
It's a good question in the chat. What would be a proof of life? Maybe a brief video recording, maybe. or something that only she would know, right? There's ways, but it's outside of a video and letting you see them, it'd be difficult to trust it. And even then, it could be a recorded video, so you don't know if it's actually proof of life. The only way is to like let them say hello and then like have that quick back and forth. But somehow I just doubt that's going to happen at this point.
There was a message in the second note that came on Friday that I am told, was not necessarily positive. Do you think she means that we want our mother's, remains back at this point?
Well, there's some things that she said in that we understand, and this is the only way we can have peace, and we want her back so we can celebrate. These are not things that you say when somebody says we've got him. Here's your mother. She says, she's scared but fine. This kind of stuff. A family who had just gotten proof of life would almost certainly say, please tell her we love her, that we are going to pay, we are going to get her back. Please, if there's any way you can get her medicines to her or make sure she's okay until this goes through. I heard none of that. And so I don't know.
So he's talking as if he thinks, the Guthrie family thinks, that Nancy is no longer with us. That's what he's acting like, they are acting like. And again, maybe. Which brings the second question to me. What has really changed to make them think that? Is it just the amount of time that has passed? Is it the lack of medicine? What do you think it is? I mean, I'm asking you, chat. I don't know. What do you think? What has changed the Guthrie's family mind about this, if that is indeed what they think? Do they think she's gone? So what changed their mind?
Obviously, any more than anybody else on this side of law enforcement, what was in that note. But I think it's plausible that there's something more that they know that we don't.
What do you think is going on behind the scenes with
So Steve just said it there. There's something that they know that we don't. And I would certainly agree. I would agree the sheriff and the local law enforcement, they haven't said anything. And I'm pretty sure the FBI hasn't said everything either. So there's a lot of things in the case we probably don't know. We're not playing with a full deck here.
example, today, nothing has really happened to the house today, but yesterday they came out and they were looking in a septic tank. Friday night, they towed Nancy's car and were searching the house. Saturday night, I was at Annie's house and deputies came and were photographing the inside of the house. What I'm struggling with is wondering, are they just covering all their bases? And is this almost like a cold case? And like, there's just someone sitting in a room thinking, what have we not checked off yet? We need to be trying everything. Or are all of these things deliberate based on information that they have? And, this is all kind of like, they're working towards one goal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think you hit it right on the head, Brian. I had lots of cold cases. When you're in the bureau, the newest agent gets the cold case, and it's a 30-year murder or something like that because everybody's tired of working it. But a kidnapping case with a victim outstanding goes cold in days, not years. And so I believe that what happened is this, that in the initial rush, when it was being run by Pima County, and by the way, I'm not criticizing anything they did, they had a very short window where they could get in that 24 to 48 hours, a quick return, and they had to jump on this. So it can take 24 hours to process a crime scene. You don't have that time. So they went in and they got the evidence they could get as quickly as they could get, the most obvious evidence they could get, and proceeded with it. So now, 8 days down the road, the FBI seems to have taken over main control of the case, which they should, not because Pima isn't competent, but because FBI has thousands of agents and an entire science lab they can pop on this case. And so what the FBI has done is say, okay, at the beginning, we just had to, just bam through this whole thing. Now it's getting a little cool. And we have to go back and retrace all the steps, find anything we might have missed. And so they sent the evidence response team, which is SpaceX of evidence gathering and crime scenes. So said start at the beginning. And they do things like I've seen them operate when I was in the FBI, and it was astounding. They bring surveying equipment in, like property surveyors, and they come up with millimeter dimensions of the pool to the house to this corner, and they accurately reproduce the house and the land electronically, and then every bit of evidence is geo-referenced in what they're doing. It's just astounding. So what I see is them coming in and absolutely creating a record from the beginning.
We have a producer. I was actually just texting with her, Allison, our friend, who's at the courthouse and is telling me that that there's no warrants available. And there's been a lot of action. I mean, they've been at the house 3 times now. They were at Annie's house, the sister. Do you think that means that that they're sealed, or would they need warrants for all of these things that we've seen happening?
No, they would not necessarily need warrants. If they're sealed, I think there might be indications of a sealed warrant. But the fact that they're getting voluntary compliance, and they're not seeking a warrant. There were times when they'd say, yeah, come search the house. We get a warrant anyway, because the person was a suspect. And we know that if we eventually arrest them, they'll say, oh, I never said that.
What I would like to know is, where is the son-in-law now? Where is he? Is Annie been seen with him? That's the one thing I'd want to know. I'd also want to know about that member of the congregation that knew Nancy wasn't there. Someone said in the chat the other day that the church is the one who said Nancy wasn't there, although I wasn't able to find a confirmation of that. Other thing to note, Sheriff said that he messed up, actually. He said they shut down the crime scene too soon. They opened it up to the public too soon. And he admitted that was a mess up, which it was, because now that crime scene could be contaminated. And that's why they kicked them out the whole street, because all of it could have been evidence. So the FBI came in there and they looked at what was going on, and they were thinking, wow, they should not have opened this up so soon. They could have missed stuff. And so they backtracked a little bit. And the sheriff, to his credit, agreed that, yeah, they messed up a little bit. But also, remember to like the video if you're here, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. I talk a lot about true crime, current events, and I use my experience with mental health addiction and narcissism and apply it to those things. Also have a great flock of black sheep here too.
So what this means to me is they're somewhat confident that they have legitimate access to the house that is not going to be attempted, that nobody's going to attempt to rescind in court, which means they don't view people as suspects in this case.
And I know you only have limited information, and we all only have limited information on the outside, but with your gut, do you think this kidnapping element is real? Or do you think this is sort of just a sideshow and they're working a whole different investigation here?
I think that's possible. I'm not putting it as my number one possibility, but they may know more than me. Certainly the going back to the evidence, and they are certainly considering the possibility that the kidnapping was that was a plan B. It took a while to get that ransom note. Usually, it took past, the most valuable hours of investigation before we even got a ransom note. So it's possible that they were attempting something else and are turning it into a ransom to cover up something. It's kind of possible that it could have been a residential burglary gone bad. But in that case, I don't see residential burglars having the wherewithal to come up with a complicated kidnapping plot.
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering, is the ransom, are these notes totally separate, like someone, overseas just trying to scam money out of the Guthries, and could it have nothing to do with Nancy Guthrie's disappearance?
Very good question by Brian here. Could these ransom notes be completely unrelated to the disappearance? And I have wondered the same thing. People had said, well, the crime scene was messy and some of these ransom notes seem pretty organized. Does that mean they're not the same people? And I would say, yeah, it's possible they're not the same people. But let's see what the former FBI agent says about it.
It's possible, but I don't think the FBI would go with that. They have to have provided the FBI with something that would indicate that they that they know what's going on in that house.
Right. Yeah, I've thought about that too. Why would you put Savannah and her family through that if you just
Right.
were secretly working a whole nother, and unless they just don't know, and you have to really suss out both options. Is that possible?
It's possible. I don't think it's probable. You don't send $6 million on a hunch. I just don't think that's the case. I think more communication back and forth. You haven't provided us with enough. We're not going to send you $6 million when you can't even prove you're related to this. So I believe they've gotten some information that has convinced them.
The other thing, though, is if you're Savannah and you have the money and maybe they haven't given any proof of life or given any additional communication, but it's your own mom, how do you not just send the money? You know what I mean? Like,
I get that. I get that. People have to make these hard decisions. And I think in that case, though, that if the FBI was not convinced that these people were the legitimate kidnappers, that the FBI would probably recommend not sending the money. And frankly, Savannah's had a lot of dealing with law enforcement over her career. She's covered so many criminal cases. I would suspect, and I suspect that she has enough confidence in the FBI that she is going to follow their recommendations.
yeah. And we know that they've been there helping her craft the messages. And the last one was it was so interesting. We've received your message. And it was almost like, I'm sure there's a whole science behind this, but like almost trying to be sympathetic to the kidnapper in a way. That was the vibe that I got. Like you're trying to we don't think you're the devil kind of thing.
Right. There is an absolute science behind this, and accurate and a pretty useful science. So there was not a word in that statement that was unnecessary, that was superfluous, that wasn't considered. That note was as carefully crafted as a crossword puzzle. Every single word and the number of words and the tone.
And in accordance to what Trump said, as far as we know, there's been nothing new since he said, oh yes, could be something definitive with a suspect. So far, there's been nothing since he said that.
Everything. There's a reason besides notoriety that Savannah's, that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, and you can tell that they're reading. Like she looks down in pretty much every video. So it's obviously she's trying to stick to the specific words.
Right.
Just back to something else from Saturday night when I was out at Annie Guthrie's. The 3 deputies showed up, blue gloves. They went in. It was very low key. Like it wasn't they weren't FBI. There was a security guard there hired by the Guthries who seemed to know they were coming, let the 3 deputies right through. And we've since learned that it was consensual, that, the family knew they were coming, and the blinds were down, but we could see flashes from inside. So they were taking pictures inside the house for about 3 hours. This is, again, Annie Guthrie's house. So Nancy's other daughter. Should we be reading into that? As in, a lot of people are questioning whether someone in the family was involved, or is that just standard protocol? And is that just someone behind the scenes saying, oh, we never got pictures inside the house and that's where she was Saturday night? We should just do that regardless. Like we should have that no matter what.
Yeah, I don't see how that would happen. I think, see, if the FBI is going to take this case federally, it would mean that anybody who collected evidence would have to testify. And so if the Bureau needed those pictures or whatever was in that house, they would have sent FBI agents so that everybody in the same organization is on the same page and they're all testifying. So I don't think that was what you would consider crucial information. But at the same time, it indicates the second time they've been in Annie's house. And, I'm not saying Annie or her husband had anything to do with this, but it's possible that they had people working in their house that might have been involved. Think about this. Annie was responsible for essentially, she lived closest. So of the family members, she was right there where she could take care of her mom. And she had knowledge of the house. She had all the information about getting into the house, their timing and things like that. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that somebody who had been in Annie's house could be a suspect. And that would mean photographs were being taken.
So who would it be? Who could even be a suspect that was in Annie's house? Son-in-law, Tommaso. Who else, though? I can't think of anyone else. Maybe the Uber driver? That's pure speculation, though, because no one said that. The sheriff won't even confirm Tommaso is a suspect, so it makes me wonder, especially as time goes by here, why, if Tommaso's a suspect, why not just say so now? Why not say so? Because if he is, and then someone sees him, okay, now people are going to see him and they'll report it. So I don't know.
Might not be Annie's husband or Annie, but it could just be they're interested in someone who was just at the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Or even what happened that night. Was there, doing background on Nancy that night? Was she in good health? Things like that. There's so many things it could be, but I would lean, if it has anything, obviously it has something to do with the kidnapping, but I would lean towards the fact that it's not necessarily Annie or her husband. I would think more along the lines of domestic help, handyman, things like that.
So NBC News is reporting that the family consented to the sheriff's office showing up and doing whatever they were doing in the house with the camera flashes. Would they still, is there a difference between consent and a warrant? Would they have gotten a warrant if it was more serious?
Well, here's the thing. If you are searching somebody's house, is potentially a suspect, and they give you consent to search, a good lawyer will always try to get that consent revoked at trial. They'll say, oh, they didn't tell us what they were searching for. They didn't tell us we were suspects. There's so many things that they could bring up and say, we would never have consented had we known, blah, 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 blah. And so you tend to, those type of searches become extremely vulnerable. So I would never, at a suspect's house, except in exigent circumstances, accept a consent search without a warrant. And once I started searching, I would have people at the courthouse finding a magistrate to get a search warrant.
So that's an interesting point there. So he's saying, even if you're the Guthrie family, you would want to make them get a warrant just in case. That's interesting. I think the Guthrie family is thinking, we want to show we have nothing to hide. And so, sure, come on in. We consent to you taking pictures in Annie's house. But what do you think, chat? Should they have made them get a search warrant? Or do you think they're just trying to show transparency by giving them the consent to do so? So type 1 in the chat if you think they should have gotten a search warrant or made them get one. Type 2 if you think, no, they're really just trying to be transparent and helpful.
That is so interesting, and really, really important, I think, because I hadn't thought of that, and that really adds something. The other thing I wanted to ask you is, she's 84 years old, Nancy. Everybody with older parents knows you have a lot of people that start helping. You got healthcare aides, and you've got housekeepers and pool people, whatever. She's got a really nice house. I'm sure there's a lot of maintenance. Do you think they're looking into all of those people?
Absolutely. Every single person who's been in that house for the last 5 years is going to be looked at. This is why the FBI is so important. They can get.
And again, and maybe he's saying that, oh, the police or the FBI to cover their tracks to make sure that there's no evidence that was found improperly or in an unauthorized way should have gotten a search warrant. Maybe that's more so what he means. And to which I would agree more with that, because if you're law enforcement, that's how mistrials happen. If there is evidence gathered in an unlawful way. So how do you prevent that? Well, you do everything by protocol. You do everything by protocol and get a search warrant, and you don't rely on just consent to search. Now, maybe there's a way that you can poke holes. If you're a defense team, you could say, well, they just gave verbal consent. They should have gotten a search warrant. Maybe.
So many resources in there to just track these down. And I've got to tell you, I remember maybe the last 5 kidnappings on which I did something, surveillance, SWAT arrest, or whatever it was, or investigative work. Every single one of them was somebody who had either been known to the family or in most cases had been in the family's house. So if they didn't know Nancy, it would surprise me.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Steve, as always. You're so helpful. So we really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
As always, I really appreciate Steve Moore for taking the time to talk with me.
And so that's another interesting point, though, too. Why do you think the law enforcement, I'm assuming it's the FBI, why would they not get a search warrant? Why would they just rely on the consent? It's a good question, right? Or maybe they think there really is no suspect there and it's not going to hurt their case. Maybe that's what they're thinking. I don't know. Maybe they don't think it's anyone in the family.
His expertise is amazing. He had an incredible career in the FBI. So and he's worked kidnapping. So getting his perspective on all of this is really, really helpful. So I'll continue to be out here, obviously. Shout out to Mo, my cameraman, drone operator, just helper all around. And he got me this smoothie from Tropical Smoothie. And no, this isn't like sponsored or anything, but it's so hot out here that we actually realized that we can Uber Eats smoothies, which has been like a lifesaver the last couple of days. So, such a heavy, sad story. You got to kind of keep yourself going. And my heart, of course, goes out to the Guthries, Savannah Guthrie. And I just hope, I think everybody hopes, obviously, that this will have a happy ending. I mean, what an amazing thing it would be for us to be able to cover Nancy Guthrie coming home. So,
oh my God, can you believe that? Could you believe the story we'd get if Nancy comes back alive somehow? That would be the biggest story I could even imagine right now if that were to happen. I mean, it'd be a miracle. It'd be a miracle, and it would restore hope, I think, for people in a time where people can get pretty cynical and they can feel hopeless or depressed for many reasons, right? Economically, politically, whatever. But for her to come back alive, that would be humongous. That would be a big morale boost, I think, just to the country in general. Maybe even this is a worldwide story too, so even to the world.
That's the latest. If anything develops, you guys know I'll post it on YouTube, post it on TikTok, all over the place. And that's it. So I'll talk to you guys later on. I'll do another video later if there's any updates.
So, and other people were saying in the chat, the FBI, law enforcement, they didn't need a search warrant. And I would say, yeah, they don't need one, but if they think there's going to be something that could hurt their case later, and they think a suspect was there, you want to do CYA in that case. You want to cover your ass because you don't want to get a mistrial later because you got evidence improperly or something like that. That's the prosecution's nightmare, is something like that happens. So you do the search warrant just to avoid that possible terrible outcome. But now we will go to the next one.
are releasing their communications to whomever. Hey everyone, I'm Asheligh Banfield and this is Drop Dead Serious, and I am recording this on Sunday night, February 8th. And so this is the 7-day mark. 7 days ago, Nancy Guthrie, the mother of Today's Show co-host Savannah Guthrie, was officially reported missing. And it has been a week, right? It's been a week. Instead of clarity in this case, I think it's fair to say the case has taken a pretty sharp turn. There's been alleged ransom demands all week long, different ones, some resolution to one at least, no resolution to the other ones. Law enforcement activity across this case has intensified. It's been on, it's been off, it's been on, it's been off. And that was the day again today and yesterday. Signals that.
And the next video after this is going to have my favorite name to say in all of true crime, Jennifer Coffindoffer.
That something significant actually might be unfolding, but behind the scenes, right? I'm going to walk you through everything that happened this weekend because the facts alone in this case are enough to raise serious questions. And this isn't about theorizing or sleuthing. This is just about what has happened and what is happening in this case. And there's a lot. This weekend has been extraordinarily busy. And I think one of the strange things is the amount of activity at night. That's not normal.
So now that we have Asheligh here, this is what I would ask Asheligh. I would say, Asheligh, if the son-in-law Tommaso is a suspect, are they looking for him now? Does your law enforcement source say they're looking for him and they're trying to make an arrest? That's what I would ask Asheligh. I would say, what's going on with this? You said he's a suspect, so what's going on? Are you searching for him? Has he fled? What do we know? I don't think we know anything. But that's what I would ask Asheligh.
Typically, when we're on location, and I've spent a lot of years in the field, you know, things quieten down at night. That's when sort of the security comes in and, you know, people keep a watch on crime scenes or areas of interest. But there's not usually a ton of investigative work that goes on at night. Not this weekend. That is not at all what happened this week. In fact, in this episode, I'm going to walk you through a few very unusual things that happened. So for starters, they're starting to pull surveillance video from places in between Nancy's home and Annie's home. They're about 4 miles or so apart. I'll tell you who, why, and who actually pulled the video. It matters. Also, Savannah herself with her siblings released a short video on Instagram, and it was cryptic. Some people didn't pick up right away on.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Asheligh Banfield's source in law enforcement said Tommaso's a suspect, the son-in-law, but the sheriff has vehemently denied that every time. And I think by this point, if he was truly a suspect, I don't think they would be denying it. I think if they really thought that he had her somewhere, why would you not say to the public, yeah, we think Nancy's with Tommaso, so keep your eyes out for Tommaso? I mean, doesn't that seem obvious? The only reason you wouldn't think that is if, oh, well, Tommaso's a suspect, but it's really that he hired people to do this, and the people he hired did it. But again, they're not saying that either, so I don't know. I don't know about this anymore.
What felt like a very sad message that they want to be reunited with their mother to celebrate. Others have picked up that they feel like that's a dire message, that things may not be what they had hoped. But again, cryptic, and it's for you to decide, but I will play that for you and you can, you know, weigh in how you want to. Fascinatingly, all this activity at Annie Guthrie's house late last night and for 3 hours, and photographs being taken in the darkness and agents gloved and all the rest. I'm going to tell you all the things that we know about that new search that was being done at that home and why and what time and the uniqueness of it, as well as ransom letter details, or at least alleged ransom letter details. A TV station posted some of these details and then pulled it back, but not before it got out and it made its rounds. And so we now know some of the details of what these alleged ransom seekers may be seeking. You know, I think there's a lot to be said about the uniqueness, right, Ask anybody who's been in the business of the FBI or of hostage negotiations or kidnap for ransom business. This is not like all the others. It's very unusual. So I say alleged, ransom letters because I'm not entirely convinced these are true. I think these are scammers overseas, more than likely trying to, parasitically get in on something and try and make some money. And then really interestingly, I'm going to show you some pictures.
So Asheligh thinks that the ransom notes are not related. She thinks they're just opportunists. People from overseas being opportunists trying to exploit the situation for financial gain.
A little bit, explain about some underground probing that was going on behind Nancy Guthrie's house today. A lot of talk about what kind of underground tanks these were. I'm going to get into it with you all in a minute. First, though, I've been a broadcast journalist for many years, like decades, 4 decades. And if there's one thing that I have learned, it's this. There are a lot of people out there who are talented and capable and feel trapped. They feel trapped in a career they're in right now, and they never wanted to stay in it. But they're there not because they're not capable. They're certainly capable. But I have to just sort of hearken back to Friday night because the president was on Air Force One and made some comments that got people who are following this case very invested, right? He specifically referred to
So before she goes into what Trump said, please remember to like the video if you're here, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Super chats and memberships are a great way to support the channel. I usually talk about true crime, current events, and I use my experience with narcissism, mental health, and addiction to apply it to those things. And we also have a great flock of black sheep here too. So for the people that don't normally fit in, there's a place for you here.
Nancy Guthrie case and said this. I'm going to read, right? We have some clues that are very strong, and I think we could have some answers coming up fairly soon. I'm not talking about a search. I'm talking about a solution. We have some things I think that will maybe come out reasonably soon from FBI, DOJ, or whoever that could be definitive. A lot has taken place in the last couple of hours. That had people thinking there's movement here because, not only were the words definitive used, but also agents showed up at Annie Guthrie's home late into the evening on Saturday night. And there was a video released by Savannah Guthrie as well. So there was some thought that there was like activity. And what I can tell you happened throughout Saturday, let's just take it, as the weekend progressed. Saturday, 2 different companies, they confirmed that the FBI had come to ask them for their surveillance video. So a Chevron gas station and a Circle K. And again, these are businesses that are found sort of within the vicinity between Nancy Guthrie's home and Annie Guthrie's home, again, about 4 or so miles between them. So it's interesting to hear that at least those 2 companies, my feeling is that it's probably not just 2 companies. Typically law enforcement fans out everywhere. They go to every single place that might have a video running, including a Tesla, right? If a Tesla is parked in a driveway or even on the street in that vicinity, they'll come a knocking and ask, can we see if you maybe have one of those features on your Tesla that grabs video as movement goes by? But we do know of those 2. And then we learned about this new video that Savannah Guthrie released on her Instagram. It's very sad watching these 3 siblings who clearly are appearing in pain as they appeal to whomever it is sending these messages, these ransom or communication notes through the media. It is just so unorthodox in terms of the business of kidnap for ransom, because that is a business, folks. It's a global business, and they're not operating the way most do. But Savannah released this short, and I'm going to let you weigh in on the wording of it. But a lot of people in the business of sleuthing through the FBI, people who've worked in law enforcement who deal with kidnap for ransom or hostages have said that this language seemed very coded and very specific. But here's how how she coded her message, how she said her message as she holds the hands of her siblings.
We received your message and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only
And this video Ashley made, it's before the most recent video Savannah just put on Instagram.
way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay.
Obviously, you have heard from law enforcement that they have to take all of these things seriously, right? You get ransom demands in, you have to investigate it. And if this all turns out to be, this parasite, these sideshows, these people who are trying to glom on and steal from crime victims, God, I hope they find them. Boy, and I hope they throw the book at them. We've got one allegation against a guy in California who had made his missives allegedly directly to Annie Guthrie and her husband, and he's been arrested. He's facing serious charges. But so far, there's no other news or announcements from law enforcement that they have traced who might be behind these other. First was ransom, second was communications. That's how it's being characterized. And again, very little communication that seems to be open for the Guthrie family to communicate back. And so this is how Savannah and her siblings are releasing their communications to whomever it is that's doing this. But it's very upsetting to hear, we want our mother back so that we can, that we can celebrate with her. It's unusual wording, and we will pay. This is important to us, and we will pay.
And chat, what do you think? When she says celebrate with her, do you think it means because she thinks that she's passed? Or do you think it means just celebrate that she came back alive? Which one is it? I mean, I could see it either way. So yeah, type 1 if you think celebrate means no, we need to celebrate her life in a funeral. Or 2, no, celebrate her being returned home safely. 2 for that.
And to the point about the typical modus operandi of a kidnapper, I want to read you something from Lee Wallace. She goes by Lawyer Lee on Twitter. She's been a trial attorney for 30 years, Harvard law grad. She says, Nancy Guthrie's case makes so little sense to me as a kidnapping. As a lawyer, I've been involved in many high-profile cases, and they are way more complicated because of the media presence. Kidnappers usually ask for privacy and secrecy. It would make no sense to kidnap the mom of a media celebrity because you're getting the opposite. So I think very insightful. Once again, how many times have you seen, even in the movies?
So it sounds like about 70 to 75% of the people think that no, she thinks she's gone. And about 25% of the people think, no, it's possible that she can be returned home safely. So 75-25.
Involve the police and game over, right? Okay, so Saturday night, just a flurry of activity 4 miles down the road from Nancy Guthrie's home, the crime scene from which Nancy Guthrie was abducted, at Annie Guthrie's home. There were 3 vehicles that showed up. They were unmarked, white vehicles, parked, and multiple sheriff's deputies went into the house, but not before some of the reporters who were outside noticed a couple of very important things. First and foremost, one of them appeared to be pulling out some it's hard to say whether it was a very thin, wide, large case or whether it was a folding white table. To me, it looked like a folding white table, but it could have been a thin white or silver case. And it wasn't long before all of a sudden the reporters outside noticed that they weren't turning all the lights on when they went into this dark home, and it's late in the evening into the night. But there were some lights going on towards the back of the house and then going off. But then there were flash bulbs, what appeared to be flash bulbs going off, as though there were photographs being taken inside this dark home that did not appear to be occupied by the Guthrie family. Interesting, because of the hour that this happened. And I know there's a lot of speculation online. So many people are saying that's because luminol, you see it in the darkness. I'm not so sure that that's the right leap to make, only because nowhere do we see any of these law enforcement officers with Tyvek suits or any kind of forensic clothing. And that's usually what you would see if there's luminol testing going on. You would see people draped, and we didn't see them going in with big bags they could change inside either. So it is a really curious development. And what's even more curious maybe was that they were in there for 3 hours, about 3 hours. Very long time for these multiple officers to be inside. And again, these flashes going off as though it was flash photography in the dark, dark house. Then eagle-eyed reporters, Brian Entin among them, and Michael Ruiz from Fox News noticed that when at least one of those deputies came out, you could see clearly insignia of the sheriff's department, not the FBI. And one of them was wearing blue latex gloves. Very interesting.
Actually, you know what? That's actually a pretty big detail that I might have said that wrong before. So it was not the FBI doing this at Annie's house. It was local law enforcement. And I'm surprised that even the FBI would let them do that if they thought it was actually a big deal. Maybe the law enforcement was thinking to themselves, the local, well, maybe we should try to make ourselves useful here and try to pull out some of our equipment and seem like we're doing something. Meanwhile, the FBI, they're the ones that are really on the case, whatever parts of the case they have. And if they really thought something was important there, don't you think the FBI would have been the ones to search that house, considering that they saw previously the local law enforcement kind of blunder things? So that kind of changes how I see it a little bit.
And carrying a paper bag. Evidence bags come in all types of shapes and sizes, and oftentimes they can look like brown paper bags as well. This was not, it didn't appear to me to be sealed, but the sheriff's deputy was carrying the brown paper bag as well as that big white folding table or thin silver, case of some kind. So just a fascinating development. And then they all pulled out without talking to any of the press there, but the press stayed, and there were a lot of press because, again, this was around 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. It's an unusual time to be doing this kind of forensic processing, if that's what they're doing, especially on day 7, very unusual of this disappearance and this mystery. So another thing that deputies were observed on location, they had large maps affixed to the side of a truck. And that's not so unusual. If you look at them, I can't tell exactly, but they appear to be consistent with like property records, maybe land surveys of this area, parcel maps, maybe that kind of thing, just trying to help investigators get a lay of the land for the neighborhood and the neighbors. And, this is very rough terrain outside of Nancy Guthrie's home and outside of Annie Guthrie's home. It's very rough. It's thick, and there are cacti, and it's rugged. It's, for lack of a better word.
I kind of think the way it works is once the FBI comes on the scene, I'm pretty sure they take precedence, and I'm pretty sure they take charge. At that point, once the FBI is there, they're not there to defer a lot of times. They're there to take charge. And I think that's how it works. Let me know if anyone in law enforcement out there is watching. Let me know if I'm wrong about that. But I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
Sort of rugged desert, not easy to walk through, very prickly and dangerous. And there's probably wildlife you got to be careful of. But there's been a lot of activity. And I keep going back to Monday. Why was the search called off Monday? We're 30 hours into this disappearance. No need to search. Search is permanently disbanded unless or until we need to do something. Why? It's so odd, so soon after this mysterious disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, that there'd be no officers fanning out in these back rugged desert areas behind these houses. But the maps are out now, and we don't know exactly what they're looking for, but it certainly did start to make a little bit more sense because Sunday, we started to see very specific activity. Okay. So the specific activity that we saw behind Nancy Guthrie's house was agents finding what looked like, for lack of a better description, a manhole cover, a tank cover, could be a septic tank cover, water tank cover, and they removed it. I would say it's probably 2 feet in diameter, big, very big. And they began to probe with a big, long probe down into this underground tank. So a lot of speculation. What kind of tanks were those? I saw a lot of people talking about septic tanks, some people talking about water tanks. Let me tell you a little bit about what I know about that. Not the definitive source on this at all, but a septic tank up in Canada. And I grew up with septic tanks up in Canada. Michael Ruiz from Fox actually queried the neighborhood and found out from that neighborhood that those properties are not on the septic system. And so everybody has their own septic systems and their septic tanks in their on their property. But a lot of people have cisterns too, water tanks. And
So I asked ChatGPT, so take this for what it's worth. It's ChatGPT. So I said, when the FBI comes on a crime scene, do they take over instead of local law enforcement? It says, yeah, sometimes, but not automatically. Think of it as who's got jurisdiction, not who shows up first. Here's how it usually works. Default, local law enforcement is in charge. If a crime happens in a city or county, local or state police run the scene. They secure the area, collect evidence, interview witnesses, lead the investigation. When the Federal Bureau of FBI gets involved, the FBI doesn't automatically take over just because they arrive. They step in and may lead if the case involves federal crimes, terrorism, kidnapping across state lines. Could that be very well what we have here? For sure. Bank robbery, cybercrime. There could be some cybercrime potential here too. Interstate activity, national security, civil rights violations, public corruption. So that's what Mississippi burning was about, civil rights violations. Request for assistance from local agencies. Joint investigations are common. Very often it's collaborative, not a power grab. Local police still work the case. FBI brings resources, labs, databases, behavioral analysis. Command structure is clarified on site or through a task force. In those cases, locals may control the scene while the FBI leads specific aspects of the investigation. Local crime leads to local control. Federal crime or federal interest, FBI may lead. Both involved shared or task force command. Interesting. So it doesn't say definitively one way or the other.
I think at least one report and a photograph that I saw earlier this week showed what appeared to be like a water truck, almost like a water delivery truck that may have been in the Nancy Guthrie's direct property area. Some people wondered if it was a pumper truck for septic. No, they're usually a lot bigger and they're not so see-through. This one was white and it looked more like a water truck. So it is possible that this was a cistern or a well or a water, an underground water tank. Also very, very possible that it is a septic tank. And the reason I know about septic tanks with larger openings is because over the course of several years, the debris will build up in the bottom, right? The sludge, the sediment, and you'll eventually have to get that out. A lot of the runoff, the water off the top, the gray water, et cetera, will run into the septic fields if you have a field, but that these...
So Bella's saying it was a water well because she's never seen a septic that small. And hey, maybe the tarot cards, a lot of people saying the tarot cards are telling them that Nancy's by water. Maybe that's a part of, does a water well count as being by water? I don't know. You tell me, chat.
Sediment will fall to the bottom and eventually it will be too high. You got to get it out. So there are septic tanks that you can actually climb down into. My sister has one. And this could be one. I don't know. But I was fascinated when I saw that because I was hearkening back to the case of Jennifer Dulos 6 years ago now, May 24th. And Jennifer Dulos disappeared. Her husband, Fotis Dulos, took his own life before he could be convicted of any crime against her, but it's widely thought that he murdered her. And her body was never found. Mother of 5. But they did look in the septic tanks at Fotis Dulos's property. And I remember that well because they were looking everywhere. They had found evidence of her death. bloody clothes and clasps and rags and that kind of evidence that was thrown out in various garbage cans all along street in Hartford, Connecticut. But they looked into the septic tank. And I will also tell you this. I covered a case in New Mexico. Cody Posey murdered his father, stepmother, and stepsister, and then piled their bodies into manure. And there was a lot of testimony on the stand from experts who said that decomposition would be light speed because of the heat from the manure. So oftentimes this is a thought. If you dispose of a body in septic or manure, that the decomposition is far quicker. Maybe that's what they were thinking when they were probing down in this tank behind Nancy Guthrie's house. But that was a pretty big development today. And it's also just very disturbing because I think many of us are desperate to have a positive resolution in this case, that Nancy Guthrie will come home to her family. She's an 84-year-old woman. She has mobility problems. She has health issues. She's been without her medication for a week, life-saving medication that was needed. So it's just hard to see probing like that, but it's what they have to do. Again, I go back to why wasn't that done Monday? Why weren't they searching Monday? Why did they call up the search Monday? What did they know Monday? What did they know Monday that they said nothing more to see here? Search
Again, the sheriff has said basically they messed up with that.
called off permanently until or unless it's warranted. Something else that happened today, I think it was not supposed to happen, but it did happen. Local TV station KGUN published details of one of these alleged ransom demands, right? And then they removed the post, actually. They pulled back the reporting, but not before it was disseminated widely and reported on. And the detail that came out today that was different than we didn't know was that these alleged kidnappers were demanding a final payout by 5:00 p.m. on Monday, February 9th. That would
So time out, chat. So since this video from Ashleigh's 11 hours old, would you rather have me watch the most recent Law and Crime Network video that is only 5 hours old or 6 hours old? Or you want me to continue watching Asheligh? Or do you want me to skip to Jennifer Coffendoffer? So 1, continue watching Asheligh. 2, go to Law and Crime Network. 3, skip to Coffendoffer.
be tomorrow. And if that demand wasn't met, there'd be dire circumstances. Her life would be in danger. And that the payout had to be $6 million in Bitcoin. So those were two details we had not heard before, that the ransom demand was $6 million. There's another series of reports that had suggested that the prior deadline of Thursday last week was $4 million. If you miss that deadline, it goes up to $6 million on Monday. I can't verify that report. That was part of additional reporting. I think the New York Post had some details about that, but KGUN's reporting that they pulled off the internet did say $6 million in Bitcoin by 5 o'clock Monday.
So again, we're getting a pretty good mixture of Asheligh and Law and Crime. So this video is almost over. It's over in 15 minutes. So we may as well just finish it and then go to Law and Crime Network.
Early Sunday morning, again, Sunday morning, February 8th is 1 week exactly from when Mrs. Guthrie was first reported missing. Do you remember the story went that she didn't show for church and that friends from church contacted the Guthrie family who came to do a wellness check. And within 7 minutes, they were calling 911. Saw blood possibly on the front entrance. My source said a door left open in the back door.
Oh, we got here. Sweet. Oh, God damn it. Sweet Caroline. I love the collaboration. Thank you, Caroline. I appreciate and love the Super Chats. Super Chats are a great way to support the channel. Thank you again. Sweet Caroline, they call her.
And other things that were obviously frightening enough to call 911 right away. I'm going to get to that in just a moment because there is some oddity to the church report, and I'll describe that in a moment, but I'm not convinced that Mrs. Guthrie goes to church. There's reporting that she hasn't gone to church physically since the pandemic. So how would anybody know that she hadn't gone to church? Get to that in a second. But this morning, Sunday morning.
And that's the thing I was talking about before, right? If she doesn't go to church, how did someone from the congregation know? Now, the sheriff says someone from the church said That's how they knew. But again, how does they know if there's no way to tell? As far as I know, we still haven't gotten an answer to that.
The sheriff's deputies showed up again. Sheriff's vehicle came and drove perpendicular to the entrance of Nancy Guthrie's driveway, blocking it. That's the first time we've seen that happen. Look, they've cordoned it off. They've put up crime scene tape before. That's happened. That's not unusual. But today, the sheriff's deputy blocked off Nancy Guthrie's driveway. And also, another unusual occurrence, but maybe not so unusual. I'm surprised we haven't seen it every day, actually. So the Guthries have hired private security for both Nancy Guthrie's home and Annie Guthrie's home. And those people have been posting outside these properties for several days now. But this morning, one of these private security guards, who I'm told has a law enforcement background, as they often do, was seen walking down the driveway towards the mailbox, Nancy Guthrie's mailbox. And as he's walking down the driveway, he's slapping on like these black latex gloves. He has no insignia on, no gun, no badge, nothing. He's this private security guard, I'm told. And actually, Brian Entin confirmed for me he was a private security guard. And he puts on these black latex gloves and he opens Nancy Guthrie's mailbox and starts emptying the contents into a plastic bag. Closes up the mailbox and takes the plastic bag back with him. Given everything that's been going on, that is not unusual. And quite frankly, you've probably heard several experts in the business of kidnap for ransom who say that most of the communications go directly to the family. They like to keep the media and the police out of it typically. The last thing that they usually want is the police to know. In fact, that's often a demand. Say anything to the police and we will do something dire to your loved one, which is another reason why so many people are so suspect of these ransom demands, because they went through not only the media, but the tip lines. Like, who sends a ransom demand to a tip line at a local TV station? That's how they came in, through the web process, right? But this would be something that I would think investigators would do every morning. But this was the first time we'd seen it, or at least we'd witnessed it, that they're collecting the mail from outside of Nancy Guthrie's home. So then additional agents arrived again at Nancy Guthrie's home. And we are in day 8 now, right? A full week has passed where the search was called off 7 days ago. And more agents arrive and are out behind Nancy Guthrie's pool and garden area outside the walls of her back door. That's in the very rugged terrain. Again, cacti, rugged desert, and they're out there again, poking around, just searching around. Don't know why, don't know what it was that sent them there, but there they were. And then they left. So the mystery just sort of continues, especially given the fact that it didn't seem that there was that much need for searching early in the week. And
that's the thing about this case. The more days that go by, the more questions I have. Oh, how did they know if she was attending church virtually? How did they know she wasn't there? When they said there's no way to know. How do they know? How did that person know? Where's the son-in-law? Are they looking for him now? Is he going to be placed under arrest? What's the deal with that? What else? Who was in the car dropping off Nancy in the first place? Was it Anne? Was it Tommaso? Was it both of them? What's going on with the Uber driver? Why did the local law enforcement close the crime scene so soon and then open it back up later? The more time that goes by, the more questions we have.
now it seems there's need every day and in 2 different properties. And then, don't get sidetracked by this, but the local reporters sort of had to do a, whiplash, because sheriff's deputies had their lights going and 2 sheriff's vehicles went flying down the road to a neighbor at the end of the cul-de-sac. You could see the neighbor from Nancy's driveway. But these 2 sheriff's deputies with 2 vehicles with their lights, no sirens, pull up to a neighbor's house, park their car, and go knocking on the door, banging on the door, but nobody answers. And then they come back to their cars and they get back into their vehicles, and they're 10 minutes or so. And I think the reporters are all wondering, what on God's green earth is happening now? They get out of their vehicles and they start walking around the left side of the home. and then all the way around the back of the home. And now it looks like they're searching a neighbor's property out the back, right? So there was a lot of consternation and a lot of confusion, and people started to wonder, is this investigation expanding to neighbors now? I can tell you this. It has already expanded to neighbors. They've been asking questions of every neighbor. They've been asking for ring cam. They've been asking, what did you see? Don't think for a minute that just about every neighbor hasn't had a knock at their door to ask what they know. Have you seen anyone in the neighborhood recently? Has there been unusual activity? Any weird vehicles? There's some report that someone saw a white van at some point, but that doesn't seem to be.
And that's the other thing. We didn't learn about what happened. Remember that person that Brian Entin saw, that woman in the car, that he was interviewing her basically as she pulled up, and she said, yeah, I'm here to report some unusual activity. It seemed like people were casing the neighborhood. We received no follow-ups on that either.
Going anywhere at this point. And then an MSNBC reporter later was able to actually get the sheriff's deputies to answer him and clarify what they were doing there. And it turns out that this was a response to a trespassing complaint. I don't know if it was a trespassing complaint.
Thank you, Kellyum, for subscribing. Sweet Caroline, thank you again. They seem like such simple questions. I don't understand why they're not providing basic information. Well, let's give them a steel man, a good charitable interpretation. A charitable interpretation is they want to protect the case and they're putting the public on a need-to-know basis. That's a charitable interpretation. A not so charitable interpretation is they just don't know and they have things to hide. But which one is it? Actually, I wouldn't say things to hide, but probably they just don't know.
With press or whether it was unrelated, but it is not something that is a concern at this point, and that seemed to sort of come and go. And that was just a lot of activity that took everyone's attention away for a short minute. But I will say this, as busy as this day seemed, right, with the probing of the underground tank, septic or water or otherwise, in the backyard at Nancy Guthrie's house. And
remember, there's a reason why there's a show called The First 48, because the first 48 are the most important. And now here we are on day 8. So we've had 4 48s. And as far as I know, we're no closer. So, I mean, with each passing day, it looks better for the people that did it. It looks more like they're going to get away with it.
The activity the night before at Annie Guthrie's house with the photographs in the darkness of night and the agents and the evidence bag and the blue, latex glove, etc. Today did seem to be quieter and less activity. But the sheriff said again, no more news conferences today and nothing until it's warranted, and reiterated that they have identified no suspects, no persons of interest, nor any vehicles of interest. The key word being identified. They have not identified. That means they haven't told us. And we know that. They haven't told us publicly. What they're doing in private could be something entirely different, because that is the way law enforcement operates. They don't share everything with us publicly. That's usually the fact, right? That doesn't mean that there's not a lot going on behind the scenes. And of course, we've already learned from the Chevron and the Circle K that the FBI actually was there asking about surveillance video about vehicles. So there are vehicles they're interested in. And no one's been ruled out as a suspect, as they'll say publicly. So it is just fascinating the way in which this continues to drip, drip, drip. The investigation showing up, leaving, showing up and leaving. Who knows if we'll get something soon? I mean, with the president telling us that there was something, that was almost definitive resolution, all those things, that was Friday night. And I thought maybe this weekend we would learn something. I don't know. Look, I don't know what it means. I don't know whether they're at loggerheads. I don't know whether they are getting their ducks in a row. I do know this. They don't share everything with you, and they don't share everything with me. And sometimes when law enforcement does share, they don't always share exactly what's going on. And sometimes they share a red herring.
So, history lesson. Winston Churchill says, in times of war, the truth is so important that it must be surrounded by a bodyguard of lies. That is for you, Kat, being across the pond there. So there could be an element of that. I mean, in some ways, what is a crime? What is a potential homicide? It is a war between law enforcement and the perpetrator. And in times of war, the truth is so important it must be surrounded by a bodyguard of lies. Winston Churchill.
That is their prerogative. That is their business. Do not slight them for it. I've seen people taking the boots to the sheriff. It is unfair. Don't do that. This is a hard job. And this is a community that doesn't see this kind of crime a lot. So let's get back to this story about how the whole sordid tale of Nancy Guthrie's abduction began. The story that came to us was that somebody from church reported that Mrs. Guthrie had not shown up for church and that they'd alerted the family done the wellness check. But then we come to learn through other sources that reportedly she hadn't gone to church since the pandemic and that she live streamed the church services. And then there was other reporting that the church said this is not a two-way live stream. It's not like a Zoom call where, you know someone's on the Zoom call, they know you are, and you can talk back and forth.
What she's saying right here is where my confusion came from, where she's saying, yeah, she didn't go in person, and the church says it's not a Zoom call where you can see who's online and who's not. This is where my confusion stems from, by the way.
Fourth, a live stream is something you just take in like a Netflix movie. And that they would not necessarily know that someone's live streaming, that there would be no alert that maybe Mrs. Guthrie wasn't on the church live stream. And, to that point, I had a very good conversation with Megan Kelly about this and just how unusual that whole Sunday morning piece was when this all began. Have a look.
The timeline was changed dramatically on Sunday morning. What this sheriff had been saying to us before was that at 11 o'clock or just after 11 a.m. on Sunday morning, the family was notified by a friend in the church who noticed Nancy didn't attend, and they went over to her house, and about an hour later, they called 911. That was the story this whole
That
week.
created a lot of consternation.
Then we got to the... And many people said, why did it take an hour? How do you, especially seeing blood outside of the house, like Brian Entin got on camera, who would take an hour? Now, then last night or yesterday at the presser, that totally shifted. He said they got to the house and discovered she was missing at 11:57 a.m. So we've lost a whole hour now, the controversial hour, and called law enforcement 5 minutes later at 12:03.
Yeah, I think it was 7 minutes later.
Sorry. My math
Which,
is
by
off.
the way,
My math is off. Okay.
7 is lightning fast.
That's fast. Okay, so it's a dramatic difference. But here, let's just listen. Here's what he had said prior to yesterday. This was the story, SOD 18.
Sometime earlier that morning, they got a call from somebody at the church who said, hey, your mom's not here. The family went to the house. I'm thinking they spent some time looking for her themselves before.
Oh. Sweet Caroline, thank you very much. Why in the blank don't they ask someone? Ask who, though? Ask who about what, Caroline? About church and why she wasn't there? Or how they found out she wasn't online? Thank you, Caroline.
They called us, so I'm guessing maybe they got there around 11. So they did some searching and realized we need some help, and they called 911.
She was dropped off at 9:30, and she was found to be missing at about 11 o'clock Sunday morning.
Yes, those are the questions I'd be asking Caroline. I'd want to know, how did they know if there's no way to see if she's online? The questions I would follow up with, okay, do you have a live chat? As far as I know, no one mentioned that. But it's a one-way thing. And is there a way to know who's in attendance and who's not? They didn't make it seem like there was. So I'm just confused about it.
Know that when we got there, the family was already there. And they had already spent some time looking, as you would expect. Probably we got an hour delay there from them. Not anything intentional, just that, they went and looked and made some calls, and then they decided we better call 911.
And at 11:56 a.m., the family checks on Nancy and discovers her missing. And at 12:03 p.m., 911 is called in to the
And this is a super fast timeline too. Like they instantly decided something's wrong. And you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of when Spencer Tepe wasn't at work and his fellow coworkers at the office were instantly thinking something's wrong. And specifically what they said was, especially since they couldn't get a hold of Monique, and they're calling 911 instantly. And it seems like Nancy's family here and the rest of the congregation, they knew something was wrong instantly, which is peculiar.
Out of sheriff's department.
Now, with an 84-year-old woman, you could say, well, health issues, right? You could have a health issue. You don't want there to be a heart attack or something. All true.
What?
Ha!
Because just to underscore it here, first they got a call from a friend at the church around 11:10. Then he says it was at about 11. Then he told you, that middle clip is on your show. He says they found out about 11 and it was about an hour delay before they called 911. Now, yesterday, he says they checked on Nancy and discovered her missing at 11:57. Right? Is it I keep
11:57. No, that's the right number.
I don't have
That's
it
the
in
right
front of me.
number.
Yeah, 57. So what do you mean? Because we've also, in the midst of all that, had both the Daily Mail and Brian Entin yesterday told us as well, reporting that Nancy Guthrie wasn't going to church physically anymore and hadn't been since the COVID pandemic, that she'd been joining the live stream the church offers and participating from her home. Moreover, the Daily Mail reports it wasn't a Zoom situation where the congregants could see who was joining virtually. It was just a live stream being blasted out by the church, outgoing only. And therefore, no one would be aware of whether Nancy was participating or not. So how do we go from, she talked to a friend who was concerned at the church, which you heard him say on camera there, and they took him an hour and then they called 911, to now it's, they checked on Nancy and discovered her missing and within moments called 911.
Yeah, I think these are all things.
So Rico, I would say, if that's all it is, like the pastor can see who's online and who's not, that would solve it. But we don't know if that's the case. Sweet Caroline, thank you. MK said on show today, I guess that, or not, you're not Caroline. Classic Tang lover, thank you. Sorry about that. MK said on show today, ladies watch in a group. So Megyn Kelly said that. Okay, so that would explain it then. So they watched in a group and she wasn't there. Okay. Thank you very much for that.
Things that lead to an even bigger mystery and a little confusion. I always give law enforcement grace when there's so much going on and there's an exigent circumstance, and now all these ransom notes, which have taken law enforcement's direction elsewhere. Let's be honest, this is awful. These ransom notes, especially the one in California, if this guy is guilty of this, it has taken their attention away. But it's a, fog of war is not easy. I can understand how there'd be communication breakdown. There's other agencies coming in, sharing of information, maybe telephone, the game of telephone makes mistakes. But I do think that it adds to another element of confusion about this.
I think you're being too nice in this situation. With all due respect to the sheriff, you know as well as I do, the time she was discovered missing is very important.
It's critical.
It's not fog of war. It is not fog of war. That you know.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. Maybe the dissemination of it was, though. The only grace I give is that it is a complicated task that they're undergoing, and we don't make it.
Nobody asked about it. Somebody in that room needed.
So time out for the chat. Everyone should show my moderator here, Livin, some appreciation. She's always telling everyone to hit the like button and telling people to support the channel. So shout out to her. Thank you very much.
To say you've adjusted the timeline dramatically, Sheriff. Why?
Yeah, no, there was lots that I wish they'd followed up on the car being towed and being processed by warrant. I mean, where was that? Like, hold it.
You and I are going to have to fly out there for the next one. Literally, I think you and I are going to have to fly out there together for the next one. That's at least 4 questions, 2 for you and 2 for me. Yeah, seriously. Like I was very frustrated because it was like, that's an obvious one. Ask that. And the one about the car was the other one. Like he just sort of elided around it. It was like,
yeah.
Car, standard search warrant, court orders,
the house,
crime scene.
not which house.
Wait.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I know.
Nancy's house is the crime scene. Was it towed from Nancy's house or was it towed from Annie's house, Sheriff?
I haven't gotten to the bottom of that yet. There may be a very good reason. Let's just say, for instance, she live streamed with a friend on speakerphone and the friend couldn't get through and thought she's not joining me for church on speakerphone. Maybe that's it. Still trying to get to the bottom of that. But I think one thing we have gotten to the bottom of is that although the sheriff told us multiple stories, it seems that most people are settling on the last thing that the sheriff told the New York Times, and that was that the night before, on Saturday night, her son-in-law was the last person to see her dropping her off. Not the daughter and the son-in-law. It seemed as though that the definitive answer to the New York Times was the son-in-law, even though at the last press conference the sheriff gave us, family, we're just going to go with family. So we're sort of still in the same boat, waiting for the next shoe to drop, waiting for the next big investigative piece. I will continue to keep you updated the best I can, but obviously this is a very complicated story with a deadline coming Monday, 5 o'clock from these alleged kidnappers and their ransom demands. Watch the space. We'll see what happens after tomorrow.
Bye-bye, Ashley. Hopefully people are not giving me grief for the Megyn Kelly. I didn't know she was going to play her in that.
p.m. Mountain Time. As that part of the story, a desperate plea from Savannah Guthrie as her mom is still missing.
We believe our mom is still out there. We need your help.
We are hours away from the second reported deadline in the alleged ransom notes sent in the Nancy Guthrie case.
This is very valuable to us, and we will pay.
The Guthrie family says they will pay. The number that's being reported is $6 million. Investigators are still canvassing multiple locations, and we are still left with more questions than answers. The search for Nancy Guthrie now entering day 9. We're on the case presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart.
And by the way, I am a Chris Stewart fan. I think he's in the top 3. I think Brian Entin and Maureen are the A team. You can have a debate on who's the B team, but Chris Stewart, he's in my top 5, top 3.
Staying on top of the news is crucial. We keep you up to date on the world of true crime, but beyond that, it can be frustrating to find news you can trust. You might have concerns about bias, and you're asking yourself, who and what do I believe? So let me introduce you to our sponsor today, Straight Arrow News. Straight Arrow News is a personalized news platform that gives readers fact-based journalism. To Nancy Guthrie is stretching across multiple locations. Savannah Guthrie just posted a new video to her Instagram saying she believes her mom is still out there and she is calling on the public for help.
Hi there, everybody. I wanted to come on and just share a few thoughts as we enter into another week of this nightmare. I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for all of the prayers and the love that we have felt, my sister and brother and I, and that our mom.
And that would be the other question I have for the people in the residency. Did any of you had a Ring Cam or a Nest Cam that actually had the subscription and you have footage? Oh, and another question I forgot. Can they Google in from a satellite what the heck was going on at that time of day? I would ask Elon Musk or anyone that knows technology, can you do that? I wouldn't be surprised if you could.
Has felt, because we believe that somehow, some way, she is feeling these prayers and that God is lifting her even in this moment and in this darkest place. We believe our mom is still out there. We need your help. Law enforcement is working tirelessly around the clock, trying to bring her home, trying to find her. She was taken and we don't know where. And we need your help. So
Josh Brown, none of this is copyright for one. It is fair use for two. So you don't need to be spreading allegations like that. Thank you very much.
Coming on just to ask you, not just for your prayers, but no matter where you are, even if you're far from Tucson. If you see anything, if you hear anything, if there's anything at all that seems strange to you, that you report to law enforcement. We are at an hour of desperation, and we need your help.
TMZ is reporting the Bitcoin wallet linked to the alleged ransom note they received is still empty. We're going to continue to monitor that heading into Monday night. Also tonight, we're keeping a close eye on the deadline that the alleged ransom note laid out. That second deadline being 5 p.m. Mountain Time. As that part of the story is playing out, law enforcement says it's continuing to investigate multiple locations in connection to the case. And one of those locations is the home of Annie Guthrie, which is about 4 miles away from Nancy Guthrie's house. And Annie's house is where Nancy was before she returned home and then vanished in the middle of the night. It was a night with family, and we've been told there was dinner, there were games, very typical, nice family evening. Then she goes back to her house, and that's where this story begins. Now, Annie Guthrie is Savannah Guthrie's older sister. Here she is with Savannah and her mom at what appears to be a show last year. This picture was posted to Savannah's Facebook page. And this is what Annie said in the first video that was posted to Savannah's social media, speaking to whoever is claiming to have possibly taken her mom, Nancy Guthrie.
The light is missing from our lives. Nancy is our mother. We are her children. She is our beacon.
So Savannah's whole demeanor and tone here, not that she's the one speaking, but just how she looks in this is much different than the most recent ones. I don't know what explains that. Just time, maybe.
She holds fast to joy in all of life's circumstances. She chooses joy day after day, despite having already passed through great trials of pain and grief. We are always going to be merely human, just normal human people who need our mom. Mama, if you're listening, we need you to come home. We miss you.
Now, I want you to look at this video here because there were some big developments over the weekend. This is video per Brian Entin of News Nation, and it shows law enforcement on Saturday night at Annie Guthrie's home. These are Pima County deputies, we've been told, who were at Annie's house for multiple hours. And this was after the Guthrie family put out their most recent plea to their mom's alleged kidnappers on social media.
We received your message and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay.
It is unclear what deputies were doing at Annie's home. Law enforcement, for as public as this case has been, they have been tight-lipped about exactly what information they're finding and what they were doing at Annie's home over the weekend. Now, that home is where reporters claim they saw flashes of cameras.
So again, to reiterate, it was local law enforcement there, and they got consent from the Guthrie family to do that. Now, the guest that Brian Entin had was saying maybe law enforcement, the local law enforcement should have gotten a search warrant just in case to dot their I's and cross their T's, so they don't get a mistrial later. Sure. But why didn't they do that? Maybe because they don't really think it's going to be suspect related, maybe. I don't know. I couldn't tell you why they didn't do it.
Inside the house. The Guthrie family had reportedly been staying at Annie's house as this search has gone on, but now they are no longer there, according to media reports. We'll talk a little bit more about what we know about the multiple locations where this search is playing out in just a moment. Now, the search may also be stretching outside of Pima County and outside of Arizona.
Now, did you see that view? Let's go back here.
About what we know about the multiple locations where this search is playing out in just a moment. Now, the search.
So this So could you imagine if there's a footage like this from a satellite, except higher resolution, and you can zoom in and you can know what time it is? Surely there's satellite technology that has this capability. Surely there is. So it's just a matter of whether there was one in position to do it.
Search may also be stretching outside of Pima County and outside of Arizona. This is the billboard that the FBI has put up. The billboard is up in places like Houston, El Paso, San Diego, Los Angeles, San Antonio, Dallas, and Albuquerque, New Mexico. Law enforcement have not shared any information on where this investigation is taking them. On Sunday, the Pima County Sheriff's Department once again said they don't have a suspect or person of interest in this case. Now, it's important to know, just because they're saying that on social media, saying that at news conferences, saying that publicly, that doesn't mean that they don't have people or a direction that they are heading in this case that very well could bring it to an end. The FBI has said they're offering a $50,000 reward for information in this case that helps them track down Nancy Guthrie and whoever is responsible for her disappearance. Now, Nancy Guthrie also, it's important to note, lives about an hour and a half, 2 hours away from the U.S.-Mexico border. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos was asked last week if they were working with Mexican authorities, and he said no, but he did say they're always in touch with the Mexican consulate in Arizona. You might remember early on in this case, Border Patrol was involved, but then they stopped being part of this case. It's unclear if law enforcement is looking outside of the country, but just geographically, I think it's important to bring up. Now, we've also seen media reports of law enforcement canvassing the area around Annie Guthrie's home and asking neighbors for surveillance video. The Pima County Sheriff said on Sunday that the investigation at multiple locations, those are just follow-ups. Now, we have seen search activity continue at Nancy Guthrie's home as well. Law enforcement were seen searching a maybe septic tank or a storm drain on Sunday on her property. Also, we noticed that floodlights have been taken from Nancy Guthrie's house. Now, that matters because law enforcement said previously that
So that's interesting, Kelliam. So the case, if this was for money, an abduction for money, the most similar case was in 1992 when an Exxon exec was abducted from his driveway. Ooh. How did that case end?
Floodlights were one of two specifics mentioned in the initial alleged ransom note. The other specific was Nancy Guthrie's Apple Watch that was reportedly left on a charger. Law enforcement also paid a visit to a Circle K gas station near Nancy Guthrie's house because of a tip related to a vehicle of interest. Law enforcement have not confirmed if the surveillance video that the gas station gave to them netted anything important in this case. One of Nancy Guthrie's neighbors did tell the New York Post that they had passed along to law enforcement that they had seen a white van with no printing on it parked in their neighborhood. Deputies and the FBI haven't commented on any vehicle of interest in this case.
And maybe that was the woman that Brian Entin was speaking to. That's what she reported to them, how we saw what seemed like somebody casing out the neighborhood. It sounds like it could be. But then again, the law enforcement there is not saying anything about it. Doesn't mean it didn't happen, though. Like I said, they're not saying the son-in-law is a suspect. Doesn't mean he isn't, though.
But when talking about vehicles, another clue that we did see over the weekend was a car that was towed from the garage of Nancy Guthrie. This is another video from Brian Entin, who's been outside of Nancy Guthrie's house for the past week, and it shows that vehicle being taken away. There was also a vehicle taken, and this was early on in the investigation, a vehicle that is believed to have belonged to Annie Guthrie. Now, it's possible that that's the vehicle that Nancy Guthrie was driven home in before she was allegedly taken. The sheriff said that a family member took Nancy Guthrie home after she Ubered to Annie's house that Saturday night, but the Pima County Sheriff would not say the specific name of the person, the family member who drove Nancy Guthrie home. You would believe that that's the last person to see Nancy Guthrie before she vanished. Now, the sheriff said the reason that they took that car or looked at that car, and it's unclear if they still have it, is just standard evidence collection procedures. Remember, Nancy Guthrie returned home to her house around 9:45. They know that because of the garage door opening and closing around that time. And then they say her pacemaker disconnected from her iPhone around 2:30 in the morning. And that is believed to be when.
I mean, Brian Entin is basically camping in Arizona. I don't know where he sleeps. Is there a hotel close by? Maybe. I don't even know. But he's working hard on this case. I give him credit for that. I mean, I don't know if he's not doing his News Nation show while he's there. I don't know. Does anyone know the answer to that?
Nancy Guthrie was allegedly taken from her house.
We received your message and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her.
Well, sweet Caroline, thank you so much. We all love this channel. I love you all too. We got a great flock of black sheep here. Let's show our gratitude by supporting Jared. Hit the like button. Thank you so much, Caroline. You're the best. And again, for all the people that have been the black sheep or scapegoat, this is the place for you because I can relate to that as well.
This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay.
So that's the message put out by the Guthrie family on Saturday night. And you see Today's Show anchor Savannah Guthrie arm in arm with her brother and sister once again, her brother Cameron and her sister Annie. This is the third video message that the Guthrie family has released in the last week to whoever allegedly took their mom.
We are ready to talk. However, we live in a world where voices and images are easily manipulated. We need to know, without a doubt, that she is alive and that you have her. We want to hear from you, and we are ready to listen. Please reach out to us.
Now, that was the first video that they put out last week, that roughly 4-minute video, and it's unclear if they have had any contact or more contact with the person or people behind their mom's disappearance beyond what has been confirmed by law enforcement. Now, in the most recent video, the Guthrie children say that they are ready to pay to get their mom back. And a big development over the weekend, again, was K-Gun TV station in Tucson, Arizona, reported on Saturday night that its newsroom received an alleged ransom note last week. And they said for the first time, the amount of money the kidnappers allegedly are demanding, and they say it is $6 million. Now, the TV station also said that the deadline to pay that $6 million Monday, today, at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. Now, the TV station did say that that figure, that the timeline has not been confirmed publicly by law enforcement. Now, we know the alleged ransom notes had two deadlines. One was Thursday, February 5th, and then you have the other being today, Monday, February 9th. Now, for as public as this case has been, I think it's important to point out, with all the speculation, internally, the inner circle of the Guthrie family, the investigators who are closest to them, we really have no idea what is going on with this case. We can only sit back and you see so much speculation. You see the reporters outside of Nancy and Annie's homes kind of doing a play-by-play on social media of what members of law enforcement show up. TMZ reported in the ransom note that they received that it said that Nancy was safe, but she was scared and that she understood what was going on. It's also important to point out the medication that the sheriff has talked about. When Nancy was taken last week, the concern then, and it's certainly a concern now, was that she had serious health issues. She couldn't walk 50 yards on her own. She was sharp as a tack, but without the medication that she takes regularly, she could die within 24 hours. Now, TMZ has said that the FBI had told them not to share certain details in this case, but TMZ has also shared a good amount of information, it appears, from that ransom note, including what they say is an amount of time that it would potentially take for the alleged kidnappers to return Nancy Guthrie if that ransom is paid and if those ransom notes are allegedly real. TMZ put out a radius on a map of how long it would take to get someone back to Tucson if she is no longer in Tucson, if they were driving the speed limit. And that radius stretches as far away as California, Colorado, or into Mexico. but it's unclear, again, if that ransom note is legit. But from the videos that we're seeing on Savannah's Instagram, the Guthries and law enforcement are taking it very seriously, it appears. Now, there is a major presence of federal law enforcement in this case. President Trump has pledged his full support. He also said something that piqued a lot of interest for those who have been following this case on Air Force One, because he was asked about the investigation. And he told reporters, quote, "I think we're doing very well on everything. You're probably surprised to hear that. We have some clues that are very strong, and I think we could have some answers coming up very soon." He said this before the Guthrie family posted that most recent video saying that they will pay. Now, the media outlets who received the alleged ransom notes also claim whoever sent the notes are demanding it be paid in Bitcoin. Now, I'm not a Bitcoin expert. I'll be honest about that. But I did speak with missing persons private investigator Steve Fisher, who said if the Guthries pay the alleged ransom, that could open up a whole new trail of clues for the FBI to follow to try and track down whoever sent the notes.
So, the FBI has long taken a stance of in ransom situations, we play an advisory role. They can't legally, they say that they absolutely have a policy of not paying any ransom, but period. But they don't tell family, they tell families it's ultimately their decision. It's not illegal to pay a ransom. It is illegal to.
Yeah, that's what they all said. They said it's the family's choice. But if I'm the family, I'm not paying a dime unless there's proof of life. And there wasn't.
Receive ransom dollars and in any form. So, but they will advise them through it. If you decide to pay, they will help them kind of maybe best practices, if you want to call it that. But the FBI or the Treasury or anybody is not the one advancing that money. What would happen is the family or whoever for the family, however they do it, would actually have to go open a account on one of the large crypto exchanges, and they would have to wire in. I hadn't heard the $6 million figure, but let's say I hadn't heard any figure, but so that's interesting.
Yeah.
But say $6 million, and they would have to wire in $6 million, and that would immediately be converted to Bitcoin. So I suppose it's at the time you pay it, whatever the value is, and then it's immediately, then they just do it online. You just do it on a laptop. You put in that Bitcoin address. Do you want to really send this? Yes. Are you sure you want to send this? Yes. And then boom, it's gone. But it's on the blockchain. Then it's a public ledger. Everybody in the world that can see it. So
again, what would happen is it would go to that place, and you would have to see if you can track where that address is, like physical location. But if you're a criminal, what you're going to do is the second you get that Bitcoin, you're going to disperse it to about 10 different addresses to make it harder to track. And then you're going to transfer it to altcoins that are geared towards privacy, whether it's Monero or other privacy transaction tokens. And so that by that point, it would be extremely difficult to find anything. But that's, if I was the criminal, that's what I would do.
That, and that they can't just take that and be like, here, cash it out and send it to this, wire it to here. It's very, very difficult for them to scrub that, because and the whole world, not just FBI or Treasury Department, every internet sleuth in the world is going to be watching that Bitcoin wallet for eternity.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because I'm not a Bitcoin savant by any means, but it's like when you hear that they want it in Bitcoin, you think like, oh, maybe that's not traceable.
So what they can do, an exchange can blacklist a wallet, right? But it depends, right? It depends on where that is. It depends on what maybe they can do an OTC transfer. I don't know.
But it seems like it's very much traceable.
Yes.
So we'll see how
it's not really traceable. It's not, you're not identified as the wallet holder. But when you cash out, you have to send it to, if you're converting it to any form of currency, it's got to eventually go to a bank account then. That you have to set up. So it becomes very difficult. And if you want to go buy a Lamborghini or something, well, they're going to be there saying who registered this, where did the Lamborghini go? They're going to track any asset you buy with it. They're going to follow that to see who ends up with that asset.
The Pima County Sheriff's Department also said on Sunday that they will have a presence outside of Nancy Guthrie's home at the request of the family. If you have any information on where Nancy Guthrie is, you can contact the Pima County Sheriff's Department or the FBI. Contact Pima County Sheriff's Department at 520-351-4900. And you can also contact the FBI. 1-800-CALL-FBI is the number, or you can go to tips.fbi.gov. Joining us now to talk more about this case and where we may go from here, Troy Hillman, retired police sergeant. Thank you for being with us on Law and Crime. I know this is taking place in your state of Arizona. I keep going back to these ransom notes because, I mean, everything I've heard is like there's just the way that it's being gone about and like having two deadlines and it coming just a couple days after Nancy Guthrie was allegedly taken, that it doesn't fit the mold that you might typically see in a case like this. Like, what do you see with just what we know at this point about these alleged ransom notes?
Well, I always say it's hard to really know exactly because we don't have all the details, and there's so much information kind of circling about, so to speak, and speculations. But yeah, if you just focus on the ransom notes, there is a lot of, I would say, concern there because there's been no proof of life. And then even if there was proof of life, you have to really factor in AI generated images, that kind of thing. But we don't know what the ransom notes said as far back to that, as far as specific details that would prove to the FBI and authorities that this captor indeed has her or was at the house. So there's just a lot of stuff circling right now, and it's really hard to say.
Yeah, and I keep going back to, so many other cases that we've seen. I mean, even you think of, it's a very different situation, but like Brian Koberger in Idaho and just how much heat police took for weeks, that it was, oh, they aren't doing enough, this and that. And, behind the scenes, there was a lot more going on than what they were letting on in any sort of public statement or news conference. And there was so much speculation. And that could be the case here. We'll see. When you watch some of those Instagram videos that the Guthrie family have put out, and everybody's trying to make sense of the messages that they're sending, they absolutely look distraught and exhausted. And it's not as much the question being about body language, but just like the words that they're saying. And I know people have said like, oh, perhaps the FBI is writing these messages. Like, typically, how does it work in a case? And I know this is a very uncommon case, but if someone was to send a message and put it out publicly, how do you craft that message?
I think the strategy would be, it would have to feel like it came from the family. But my guess is the FBI is obviously reviewing it and having input. You want to have an appeal for human kindness. You want to try to, appeal to this, hey, you've got our 84-year-old mom and she needs medication, and we'll do whatever it takes. So there needs to be open lines of communication with the captor at all times.
So randomly, if you need help with your chores, reward yourself for doing them and give yourself like some kind of reward every time you do them. Positive reinforcement. Or if negative reinforcement works better for you, do that.
You need to keep that. You don't just want to obviously berate them or make them feel bad, or in terms of they're a horrible human being. You want to maybe say, just appeal to hey, just please help us, just get our mom back. We'll do whatever it takes, that kind of thing.
And part of the, and again, I only know how, from cases I've covered, and I've never covered one like this, but you have these ransom notes that were allegedly sent to TMZ. And then first it was 2 television stations in Tucson, and then a television station received a second ransom note later last week. What do you make of how those notes were sent? It's very easy to get in touch in this situation with Savannah Guthrie. She's a very public person. Why they were sent to TMZ and these media outlets as opposed to directly going to the family?
I mean, that's a great question. It's tough to really isolate why. Sometimes only the criminal abductor would know that. And maybe there's been people over the year, especially, I used to look at serial killers that have basically, and I'm not saying that they're a serial killer here, but they're a criminal, basically like the fame of it and maybe going that route. Maybe there was a specific factor in their thinking of, hey, I'll get it to the news outlet rather than going to the family, maybe for the sensationalism. I don't know. But it is, this case is something that I've never seen and or read about.
Yeah. And, you know, as you just said, I mean, I know that you've, you know, done work in tracking down serial killers and people who probably have left breadcrumbs, you know, and have enjoyed, you know, in a sick and twisted way, you know, being what's being chased after by law enforcement. There's so much we don't know. Like, you know, at the end of this, you know, hopefully there's a happy resolution, but then also that there's kind of seeing how this investigation played out. On the ransom note part of it too, like I think of like the FBI, and I've asked this question before, but it's like they can figure out if someone hacks into a company and they can trace that to Russia or North Korea. Like it seems like they're very good at tracking down where, you know, a message may be sent from or a cyber attack comes from. How difficult is it to, you know, fool the FBI where if these emails came into a local television station, it's from one IP address, and I know that there's software that can change those up. I mean, how hard is it to trick the FBI into, or maybe the better question would be like, how likely is it the FBI has a good idea of where these emails were coming from?
Well, I think the FBI is very sophisticated and they have the best of the best on this and working on this. But I also think that there's certain fraudsters and that are very good too. And it's kind of this cat and mouse game, unfortunately. But I will say, and I've told a lot of people the last week that we probably only know 25% of what law enforcement knows at this point, and that's for a reason. That's just basically to make sure that the case is not compromised. We've already had one copycat that they had to take resources and arrest him. So yeah, you want to protect the investigation. So it's really, I guess it's hard to say.
Right. And that's the thing is, and again, like there's so much that we don't know. And it's this weird, I don't know if spectacle is the word, but it's like you have this media scene outside of Nancy Guthrie's home and then also Annie Guthrie's home. And it's like you follow on social media and it's just, I was getting exhausted over the weekend where it's like 3 deputies just showed up at the house. 2 deputies just showed up at the house. They're driving this. Here's an unmarked car. And it's like, at some point, yeah, there are these updates, but then it's like, I have no idea what to make of this. And it's like Saturday night you see, and this was a consent search apparently at Annie Guthrie's home. And then you see law enforcement.
So sidebar about Savannah Guthrie's husband. Based on recent reports, Savannah Guthrie's husband, Michael Feldman, is a Democratic political consultant whose firm was mentioned in a 2015 email within the released Jeffrey Epstein documents. While he has clear professional ties to the Clinton administration, the link to Epstein is through a passing mention in an email chain. Here are the details regarding the connection. Work with the Clintons. Feldman is a former Democratic political aide who worked for 8 years in the Clinton-Gore White House, including as a senior advisor and traveling chief of staff to Al Gore and a liaison to Congress during Bill Clinton's presidency. The Epstein file mentioned. In 2001, Feldman co-founded the Glover Park Group, now part of FGS Global. A 2015 email included in released documents shows Larry Summers advising Jeffrey Epstein to speak to someone at the Glover Park Group, noting that the firm has helped Clinton and General Petraeus, in quotations. Nature of the link, there is no evidence in the documents indicating that Epstein hired Feldman's firm or that Feldman had personal interactions with Epstein. Reaction, the mention in the files has gained attention on social media, particularly in relation to recent unrelated news regarding a missing person case involving Guthrie's mother. So there you have it. Connection or grasping at straws?
Enforcement going through maybe some sort of drainage pipe or septic tank on Nancy Guthrie's property. Like, what do you make of the police activity that we're seeing at this point where you have the messages coming out from the Guthrie family, but then you see the investigation from the sheriff's department continuing on at those properties?
Yeah. In these kind of situations, you have to cast a very wide net. And what I mean by that is try to get all the digital evidence you can, get all the forensic physical evidence you can, and maybe they were in a kind of a different direction at the beginning, and they kind of let go of that house. They've taken a lot of flack, but I always say, they're kind of going. This is a very fluid, high-profile investigation, and you can sit back and nitpick it all you want, but at the end of the day, they're doing the best job they can, and they're operating on minimal sleep and a whole lot of pressure. So I think I come back to the beehive of activity. You've got all these leads, you've got all this information coming in, you've got the different tentacles, the ransom note, the different surveillance videos they're checking, the cell phones, the geofencing, just all these things they're throwing at it, and they're doing kind of behind the scenes. And it's hard for the media is going to speculate if they see them doing something. Hey, what are they doing there? And then you have some, ex-law enforcement usually opine as to what they might be doing. But it is hard because there's so much going on. This is a massive investigation that is unraveling as we see it. It's just at the end of the day, I just pray that she's returned safely.
Yeah, me too. And I think too of kind of going back to the ransom notes, and then I was just thinking of kind of the work you've done with serial killers, and often we've seen serial killers like kind of as I was saying, like leaving breadcrumbs behind, and maybe they like the chase. And in this case, it seems like there is, and again, from what we know, we don't know what specifically the Guthrie family is responding to. We believe it's these ransom notes that were sent to the local television station, but there could be something else that they're responding to. But if they are, and you have them kind of giving these answers, but then there's been no report about like follow-up from the alleged kidnappers who sent that note. Like, how common is it that it's just send the Bitcoin here and that's the message, and then there's no follow-up conversation?
Yeah, my guess, my opinion is there's more, and there's probably more behind the scenes. There's a lot more to that than just, hey, a ransom note that says X and Y, because the feds are going to want to, and the authorities are going to want to verify exactly, where she is, that she's alive, before they take any action or even contemplating doing any kind of, even if they would, a money transaction.
And then when it comes to going back to these like search warrants, the consents that we're seeing, and I know the sheriff's office put out a statement saying that these were like follow-up investigate, like, whether they're going to the property and checking a different area. And I know that there's been a lot of criticism of the sheriff, and we'll see at the end of this whether that's
So going back to Annie's house was a follow-up.
Fair, unfair criticism. And there could be a whole, I think it's very easy to Monday morning quarterback somebody when you really don't know what's actually going on. But, you do see them going back to these homes. Is that common in a case? And I know this is an uncommon case, but to do these follow-up searches over and over and over again at the house. And I know he's already said publicly that he probably shouldn't have given it back over to the family in the first place, but they do seem to be following up a lot. How common is that?
Well, I think a lot of investigations that I've seen and or worked on, we would have held the house a lot longer. There was really no need to release that house. But again, that's speculation. That'll be a learning point in the future. But I think it's very common to kind of say, because there's so much, and that's a very large house, that's a very large property, there's a vehicle, and it's very common once you're not thinking initially, was the vehicle in her garage even touched? But then again, they're casting this wide net of saying, okay, well, maybe there is, or they learned something, or maybe something came in from the ransom notes that pointed to a particular thing, that they need to go verify that and assess that and make sure. And I think it came out later that somehow the lights on the back of the house were tampered with. That didn't come out initially. So information is just surfacing, and they're going to want to see, is there any physical evidence there? And just kind of piece all this together. So they'll go back as many times as they need to really come up with, to chase leads and to verify things and make sure that they dot their I's and cross their T's.
Now in the 9th day of this, I feel like, there's, so many different, it could be this, it could be that, someone they knew, someone they didn't, someone who liked Savannah Guthrie on the Today Show, and then kind of, maybe became infatuated with the family. I mean, all those different rumors and speculation and opinions could be out there. But when it comes to what we know about the night that Nancy Guthrie was allegedly taken, and you have the pacemaker, you have the Ring doorbell camera that was taken off, and then she doesn't have the subscription apparently to be able to, get video of that. Just based off of the facts as we know them at this point, and there's a lot that we don't know, like, do you feel like this is someone who is a sophisticated criminal who would have taken Nancy Guthrie, or would this be more of a kind of a brazen, kind of, not to say like a rookie, but someone who is, do you think that this is a sophisticated criminal or someone who just kind of went in and did this?
Yeah, my gut tells me that this was more sophisticated, that basically they didn't know, but they probably didn't know whether the Ring camera was hooked up, but they may have basically hid or taken their time to see if the police would have responded. There was a time gap between, I think there was movement between the Ring camera and then there was an internal camera, I think, that captured some type of movement. So there's all these things going on, and typically if you're low level and you're just going to do a burglary, you just break in, and if someone's there, you leave, or you just take some random things and beat feet out really quickly. But to go in and not only, or then, maybe you're surprised and then you end up, killing the homeowner. You don't take the homeowner unless you're pretty much you're abducting them for a reason. So there's different things that point towards the targeted, more sophisticated, and then all the tampering and those kind of things. If the ransom notes are valid, there's a lot more information in there. You're looking at somebody that believes that they're going to.
Look at that. The guy in the background, it says cold cases matter. How about that? And he's right. They do.
Basically, pull one over or get one past the police, basically.
Yeah. And we'll see what happens next. I mean, there's, again, so much speculation, but hopefully sometime soon, and still holding out hope for a happy ending to this story. Troy Hillman, it's always great to have you on Law and Crime. You have a book out called Chasing Down the Zombie Hunter. You did work in your career in chasing down serial killers. Where can people find this book? What do they need to know about it?
My book's in
Look at that. Cold cases matter.
Amazon, Barnes & Noble, available on all formats, audio, hardcover. It basically tells a story almost as if you're a ride-along with a cold case detective squad, looking at two horrific murders that were done on cyclists in the early 90s. And it basically covers that 3.5-year journey of tracking down that serial killer who was basically hiding in plain sight.
Yeah, really important for people to check out that book. Thank you so much, as always, Troy. Retired Police Sergeant Troy Hillman.
Troy Hillman seems pretty legit. I like him. So remember to like the video out there and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Now, for Jennifer Coffindoffer.
That somebody is technologically advanced. When it comes to Nancy Guthrie, everybody sees a missing persons case, but former FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffindoffer looks at the case and the ransom note and sees something else entirely. She's not calling it a kidnapping. She's calling it a possible inside job. Is the public being played? Jennifer is here to show us the evidence. You've got to see this.
This really jumps out because these letters that were received, purported letters for ransom, they just don't make a lot of sense. It was 3 days after the event. They were dropped off with media, which doesn't make any sense. I mean, look, nobody wants to get the FBI and law enforcement involved, and they were already involved. So now you're going to drop off letters with the media, who are, of course, going to contact law enforcement. Doesn't make any sense.
Well, let me ask you this. What really troubles me, and again, I've been doing what I do now for 36 years, but I'm not a law enforcement officer. I do know a lot of people who are, and I think I understand investigative tactics. Why would you ever clear the scene like day 1 or day 2, then go back day 3 or day 4 and open the scene again and put crime tape back up again, bring dogs in? It just seemed to be either out of sync or they released the scene way too soon. Why not keep it a crime scene until you find her?
Well, let's be clear. The sheriff made a mistake, and he himself owned it. He says, I'm owning it, and he mea culpa. It was a mistake. And the FBI, as soon as they got involved on day 3, they're redoing everything. So they went back, got another search warrant, researching everything. They're going to do it their way now.
Break the Case is the name of the podcast. Go and check it out. It's at Break the Case on YouTube, also on X. It's Coffindoffer FBI. It's Jennifer Coffindoffer. So let me go back to what I said early on, and I do want to get into the investigative tactics, what you do now. But because it's Savannah Guthrie's mother, does that change the FBI's involvement? Would the FBI have been involved if it didn't include her?
The FBI would have been involved, but look, you don't often have the president of the United States say,
Yeah.
listen, the full breadth of the resources of the FBI are going to be involved in this, and have Kash Patel say he's going to go out there and run the case. So certainly things are different because it's Savannah involved, but let's be honest, the FBI gets involved in almost all of these cases that have to do with any sort of kidnapping.
It is, again, Jennifer Coffindauer. Go check out everything that she does. So let's talk about the investigation of it. You find out that she goes missing shortly after midnight on a Sunday morning. It's reported by the family sometime that afternoon. The local police come in. The sheriff, the Pima County Sheriff comes in, start investigating. If you get to this, let's say that you're one of the first on the scene. And again, as an FBI agent, you would not have been. You would have been called in afterwards, I would guess. But let's say you're one of the first on the scene. You see the blood. You see that the camera is somehow disabled and she's missing, and there were obvious signs of a...
The name of his show is Unshaken and Unafraid with Joe Pags.
Struggle. What do you start putting together from that?
Well, the first thing you do is rope everything off and limit the number of people that can come in there. Secondarily, now you have to change the whole tactic of this from being missing to somebody possibly being killed. And so therefore you call in the homicide detectives. In addition, you want to collect everything you can that has to do with digital evidence. We know her Apple Watch was left behind, her cell phone was left behind, everything that was important to her, which also leads to the fact that she was taken against her will.
Yeah. Let me ask you about the technology. I think that's a great point, Jennifer. You leave the Apple Watch behind, you leave the phone behind. Does that mean that somebody is technologically advanced as a kidnapper, knowing that if we take this, they might be able to track where we've taken her? If we take this, they might be able to know exactly when this all went down. Do you think that was on purpose, or do you think that was in haste?
Is definitely in haste. Not that they would want to take any of that, definitely not, but it shows us that she didn't take what she would want to take with her if she were leaving the house.
It is Jennifer Coffindauer. Go and check out Break the Case. So you roped it off.
I believe he was in radio for years. That's why he has like the radio vernacular, and he keeps on repeating who the guest is. That's what they teach you to do in radio.
Immediately know or have a good feeling that this person is still alive or this person is no longer alive? Can you know that early on?
Know that they're hurt if they're bleeding. Again,
Yeah.
they sent in that DNA pretty quickly and it came back to her. So at that point, you know that you're looking for is bleeding, and that means they're harmed. So at that point, you don't
I don't know if it's their stream that's having trouble or is it's mine.
know whether they're just harmed or murdered.
So we talk about technology a lot, and I think Nancy Grace was on with our friend Sean Hannity the other night, and she talked about, well, you have to get out of the neighborhood. So the neighborhood is such that you've got half an acre, you've got big separation between the homes. You might not be able to get a clear view from a doorbell camera, a Ring camera, maybe not a Blink camera, whatever. But we have surveillance everywhere now, Jen, every single place you go. The nearest intersection probably has some, and it's 12:30 in the morning, 1 o'clock in the morning, whatever. Maybe the convenience store has one. Are they starting to get, maybe someone's got a dash cam that passed by the car? Are they getting any information toward that? And as an investigator, would you immediately say, let's gather every bit of video we can find in this neighborhood and beyond?
Oh, yeah, that is number one. First of all, you're going to canvass the neighborhood, and then you're going to canvass for cameras. And specifically speaking, a lot of the cameras that they sought the video for, it wasn't provided to them timely. They talked a lot about that. And that's a big problem when you're working case that's exigency is involved. In other words, possible death. So there have been huge sort of roadblocks in this case early on, and you can't have roadblocks when it's coming, when it comes to kidnapping.
When it comes to who saw her last, does that matter? I know that the brother-in-law dropped her off or whatever at 9:30 or 10 o'clock.
I don't know if they know that. Do they know that Tommaso is the one that dropped her off? As far as I know, we don't know who dropped her off, whether it was Annie, Tommaso, or both of them.
He says, does that matter?
Yes, it matters because you're looking for opportunity. You're looking for who would have known she was there. And let me be clear too. I don't necessarily think this was a kidnapping. Yes,
Okay.
she was taken, but was this a kidnapping? I really believe that this has traits of an insider job. That I feel very certain about.
Well, let me stop you there because I'm not.
And so when Jennifer Coffindauer says that, what does she mean? Does she mean Tommaso? Or does she mean Annie, or does she mean something else?
I'm not smart enough, not smart as you, obviously, to know the difference between kidnapping, abduction. I mean, what does that suggest? A kidnapping, is that always somebody disconnected from the family? And this could be somebody, if you think it's an inside job, and you're not blaming anybody directly, but if you think this could be an inside job, what does that look like? Well, how is that different than a kidnapping?
Well,
good question by Joe.
An inside job could be somebody taking her after a murder took place.
Gotcha.
And they take her. What my point is for somebody to know in this type of an area where you have acres, in some cases, separating these houses, where you have a person that is picked out, and it doesn't make any sense that this wasn't particularly targeted. So somebody would have to know she was going to be in there. Remember, her cell phone, or sorry, her Apple Watch disconnected from her pacemaker at about 2:20 in the morning. So who knew she was going to be there at that time? Who knew where the camera placement was? Remember, they weren't smashed.
Why wouldn't she be there at 2-something in the morning? That's her house.
According to law enforcement, they were taken. So this takes some planning.
It's Jennifer Coffindaffer. Go and check out everything she does. Break the Case is her great podcast. You do great numbers. I mean, I went to your X page today, Coffindaffer FBI, and you're just all over this, and I just love how you're laying it out. So let's go into the ransom stuff. Allegedly 2 ransom notes. One guy tried to get, I guess, from a local TV station, a bunch of Bitcoin, and he got arrested because he's just some doofus trying to make some Bitcoin off of this, I guess. How serious are you taking, as a former agent, the fact that the family sat down, read something that was written down, which I think is smart, said some things I think law enforcement must have said, make sure you say it this way. How significant is that? Savannah Guthrie was saying something to the effect of, we have to get signs of life. We have to know that she is still with us, and then talked about some other stuff as well. But it seemed like there was some specific terminology that was used in that what she said on that Instagram post that I think law enforcement might have told her to say. Fill me in on what you think when you saw that.
Well, I definitely think that this was constructed by our behavioral analysis unit.
Okay.
Specifically, they wanted to get out there some sympathy for their victim. They wanted to get out there an open line of communication, throw the ball in their court, say, listen, we're waiting to hear from you. And then they also put out, we're ready to negotiate with you. And I don't know if you caught it. There was something very interesting that was said. And that was, talk to her and you'll see. Now, interestingly enough, I was at the FBI Academy, and one of the guys in my class was in Silence of the Lambs. And I bring this up because
Megyn Kelly already brought it up.
The FBI was very instrumental and helpful in the filming of that movie.
Right.
And there's a line that the mother of the woman who is abducted in that case says, that exact line. Look at me.
Well, what is it? Well, what does that suggest to you?
Oh, it just reinforces what I already know. And that is that BAU had a hand at crafting what was going to be said by the family.
It is Jennifer Coffindaffer. Go and follow everything she does. Retired FBI special agent, has a great podcast called Break the Case over on YouTube. Go follow her right now. Go subscribe right now. Let's talk about this guy, Tommaso Cioni. That's the son-in-law, right?
Correct.
What do you notice as an agent when his social media suddenly goes dark or goes away? What significance does that have?
Well, this is the thing. Normally, I would think that would be very significant, but because there was information out that he might be involved in this and might be a suspect, now you don't know whether he took it all down because he's concerned about being harassed. So that does give me some pause, although most people will just make it private as opposed to taking it down. So I'm certainly taking a look at that angle of things. Also, just how they're reacting, pictures of he and Annie, that's his wife, that's his sister of Savannah, shrouding their head and hiding from being seen. It's a little bit unusual for a victim family to act in this way.
How important is it that the police have said we don't?
But again, was that photo taken before or after Asheligh Banfield came out with him being a suspect? If that's what happened after that was said, then that would make more sense. Because, you just don't want to be harassed. If it was before that, then it looks more like, oh, they're trying to cover a guilt or something like that.
Don't have anybody who is a person of interest, but we also have not eliminated anybody as a possible suspect or person of interest. That told me a lot. It seems as though that was an indication that we have not said the family's not involved.
Oh, they've said the family, they have not said that anybody's not involved, right?
Yeah.
They're basically saying everybody's a suspect and nobody has been cleared. And so that is critical.
How important is how long it's been? It's been 5 days now since she went missing. Actually, almost 6. How significant is that?
Oh, it's so significant. These types of cases, you need to get on really within the first 48 hours. It's not cliche. There's all sorts of evidence you can be missing. It's just too late as the days go by. And let's not forget, she needed particular medicine to stay alive. She had a pacemaker, she needed blood thinners, and she doesn't have any of that medicine, at least that we know of, because it's left back at the house.
Well, let me ask you this. That just draws me to the next question. Hopefully my questions make sense. They knew about the medicine. The family does. The family knows about the pacemaker needing to sync to a device inside the house that was still in the house. Could this be a case? And again, I'm not blaming anybody for anything. Just hypothetically speaking, if somebody wanted her to die, if they don't give her medicine, don't have her pacemaker, regulated, maybe it looks like she passes by natural causes. Could that be something that you look at it as an investigator?
Well, say this is a true kidnapping and they wanted money. This doesn't make any sense to kidnap an 84-year-old woman with health issues.
Yeah.
How are you going to keep them alive? And if they're not alive, they're not worth anything to you because what you care about is money. So then that begs the question, was this really a kidnapping or has something terrible happened to her and somebody's looking to gain in another way or had an issue with her and they went in for some.
What possible other way could they be gaining? Like I said, unless it's a Danny Troyer case who he gets off on SAing the elderly women. Outside of that, what is it? What is it? Silencing? I mean, Nancy's not taking the stand or anything. Punishment? Revenge? I don't quite understand it.
Sort of a vendetta.
What is your gut feeling about the ransom notes? Do you think that they're fake? Because it appears as though law enforcement are giving them some credence. Why have Savannah and her brother and sister sit there and do that? Why have Harvey Levin continue to go on television and talk about this appears to be real? Because I guess they mentioned what she was wearing that night or something, so they had some sort of information on what she was.
On a side note, I'm never going to try to be as clickbaity as TMZ. One of their video titles tonight was Nancy Still Alive. Or breaking news, Nancy's still alive. It's like, dude, shut up. They're not alive. Like, why are you saying that? They know nothing.
They haven't shown any signs of life, but are you, gut feeling, are you as a former agent for 25 years, do you feel like these are real ransom notes?
It's interesting you ask, and I always say I never have gut feelings. I truly do follow the facts. And the facts that they have said that are concerning, right? They mentioned floodlights, they mentioned the Apple Watch, but I looked back and you can find pictures and see that there's floodlights. You can, I think it was on day 2, we first heard about the Apple Watch. Remember those came out on day 3. So this concerns me. Is there information really from information that's on social media, or is it from something they knew at the time? Law enforcement has to run this to ground, though. There's no way they can turn their back on this because there were particular deadlines that were asked to be met, and that was critical. And that's why they had them get out in front of media, to contact these individuals.
Jennifer, Coffindaffer, Coffindaffer is her last name, retired FBI special agent. Go to Break the Case over on YouTube. Also follow her at Coffindaffer FBI on X. When I saw them post it,
personally, I prefer Maureen O'Connell, but that's just me. I'm a Maureen kind of guy.
On Instagram, I saw somebody on a show, and again, it could have been with my friend Sean, but the guy said Instagram is significant because if they respond via DM, you might be able to find out who it is that's responding. But I also thought that was a tip off to the person who might have wanted to respond, saying, well, I'm going to do that if they're going to find my location. Do you think there was a significant reason why they used Instagram instead of just putting it everywhere?
I think that is very odd to me. The whole thing just...
I don't. When we went over this, she has millions of followers on Instagram. So why not get it out there on Instagram when you have millions of followers? Makes sense to me.
This does not match up to me for a normal ransom request. There's nothing that makes sense about it. Again, when you do that, you leave a trail. although it seems like this trail has gone cold.
Yeah.
Nothing is making sense on the fact that they did not provide a way to be contacted. And also, by the way, in that note, purportedly, they said, listen, this is my last contact with you.
Yeah. And
Who
they
does
said, nobody, if they want the money. I don't think you would do that. So there was a deadline today, and something, bad will happen. But I'll give you another deadline on Monday, the 9th, which is this coming Monday. And then something really, really bad will happen if you don't hook us up. Let's talk about Bitcoin and crypto. Let's make the assumption that she is being kidnapped. I know that's not known, but let's say that is what's going on, and they want ransom, and they want it done through crypto or Bitcoin or whatever the hell, XR, whatever it is. Can you trace that? Because it's allegedly untraceable. It's a string of numbers. It's some sort of blockchain that you can't really trace. Could somebody get away with this with today's technology?
So what you can do is you can blacklist addresses. That's what an exchange can do. But outside of that, there's not much you can do.
Technology, or does the FBI have technology that I don't know about?
I think they possibly could get away with it. It's very possible. Whenever you're using Bitcoin, it's much less easy to trace. But at the end of the day, the FBI is not going to recommend any money be sent without proof of life. And right now, there is zero proof of life.
And that would be easy for a so-called kidnapper, wouldn't it? Let's show her reading today's paper. Let's show proof of life of the clothes that she last had on. That would be very easy. Then you get paid. Does that add speculation, or does that add suspicion in your mind that, as you said earlier, this is starting to look like it could be an inside job?
Yeah, it really does. And also, by the way, a kidnapper could say anything about what she was wearing. No one saw her.
Wow.
So
true.
I think that's very interesting that they said, we know what she wore. Well, who would know that? And especially with Savannah not living close by. Annie did live close by, but do they know her entire wardrobe or what she wears to sleep in? I don't know. Listen, there's some clues. They are obviously taking this very seriously, and they should. But I'm not sure that this is going to do anything but dead end.
It is Jennifer Coffindapper. Go check out Break the Case. I'm just about out of time. If you don't mind, in about 20 seconds, 30 seconds, how do you work, the FBI, how do you work with the local law enforcement? Because it appears as though Pima County is taking the lead. They're the ones out there speaking.
This is a good question, too. This is what I was looking up before. Let's see what they say.
To hear from the FBI as well, but the FBI has been ordered by the president himself, as you said earlier, go and make sure that we get everything done here. How do you work with the local law enforcement that way?
Well, specifically, they typically have venue in a case like this, unless it ends up being a kidnapping and then the Bureau could take over. But at the end of the day, you work hand in hand. You both have things you...
Unless it ends up being a kidnapping and then the Bureau takes over. So who's to say it's not a kidnapping right now and the Bureau didn't take over?
Give to a case like this. The Pima County, they know this area, they know the people, they have that jurisdiction in terms of venue for prosecution. So that's very important. And then the FBI should provide resources, people. That's what Pima doesn't have enough of. And that's what's going to happen. And that's what is happening.
Again, there has to be some sort of cameras on that street, if not from a satellite or another home, that can see houses, like cars leaving that area at that time. Even if you can just get a shape. Like with the technology there is today, it's like, you mean to tell me they can't do that? That doesn't make sense to me if you can't do that.
You think we're going to find something out this weekend, or you think it's going to be drawn out?
I think it's going to be drawn out.
Is there a reason why?
The reason is because I'm hearing, or not hearing, I'm seeing $50,000 reward now instead of $2,500 reward. I'm hearing straight from the horse's mouth that they don't have any subjects. I see them recanvassing, redoing everything. When I see that as an FBI retired agent, I look and I say, my gosh, they don't have a direction right now. They're trying to find a direction, and that takes time.
Get into the mind of a criminal, if you don't mind. And we've gone over time, but I don't care. This is very interesting to me. Get into the mind of the criminal. Let's say this is a kidnapping. Again, we'll make some assumptions hypothetically here. It's a kidnapping. That person, those people just want the money. If you're holding somebody for ransom, they want the money. And I'm getting the feeling from you, and correct me if I'm wrong, that this is why you don't think this is a ransom or a kidnapping, because they're not doing what it is that they set out to do, which is get the money, show a sign of life, get the money through crypto or whatever, and try to make your way out of this. They're not doing that, are they?
Exactly, Joe. And I would have contacted the family, by the way, early on. At 2:20, I have her. At 2:30, I'm making those calls. And if I'm at all worth my salt, I've already done my research as to their telephone numbers and to be able to contact them. So that's what I would have done before law enforcement ever got involved. And I would provide an easy way to be paid. And I would keep this woman alive. I would have taken her medication. The last thing you want is your commodity deceased. So they've gone about this all wrong. It just smells to me.
Well, I mean, and again, as a kidnapper, why would you get a hold of a local TV station in TMZ? I mean, that doesn't make any sense, does it?
That doesn't make any sense to me either. Sweet Caroline, thank you very much. Let's keep showing our thanks to Jared. I'd like to support this balanced, fair, and inquisitive show. Thank you so much, Caroline. If everyone could like the video, that'd be great. And subscribe to the channel if you're not already. I talk a lot about true crime, current events, and I use my knowledge of narcissism, mental health, and addiction to apply it to those areas. And there's a great flock of black sheep here too.
It makes absolutely no sense. You know they're going to go to law enforcement. Now you have the FBI on top of you. So it makes absolutely no sense what's done. I'm afraid it's going to come down to what I call Occam's razor, something a little bit more clean than that in terms of understanding motive, somebody close or somebody that knows her. I think that's where we're going to end up.
At Break the Case over on YouTube, and go check her out, Coffin Dapper FBI on X. Incredible information.
All right, so let's see the stream that people are telling me about today that he did.
If you think the Nancy Guthrie investigation is just slow, you're missing the scandal. Former Pinal County Sheriff Mark Lamb tells me people were using the bathroom inside the crime scene. Sheriff Nanos released that crime scene way too early and then went to University of Arizona.
I feel like I'm Ron Burgundy. What is this, amateur hour?
Basketball game while a woman was missing. This isn't just incompetence. The evidence might just be gone forever. Watch this. Let me ask you up front, if you know this guy, Nanos, I know that it's a neighboring county from where you were the sheriff for a long time. Pima County is not Pinal County. I don't know the makeup of the county. But I just as an observer, I'm watching him and I'm going, what's he doing? They released the crime scene too early. He's at a basketball game the other day. He admits that they messed up. So let's start from the start. Do you know this guy? And how would you rate what he's been doing on this case so far?
I do know him. There's only 15 sheriffs in the state of Arizona, and our county's bordered. We work together on a few things. He's been very good. I had a deputy shot one time. He came in, was right there for it.
Mark Lamb, America. And I was saying, Ron Burgundy, what is this amateur hour? Because they said they ruined the crime scene and they were using the bathroom in it way too soon. And I said, what is this, amateur hour?
Okay. You know, doing the media piece is part of being sheriff. Being able to go in front of the cameras and talk to people about a major case and give them confidence that that case is being handled to the best of the agency's ability, that you're exhausting every resource, is one of the primary responsibilities.
Look at him. Congressional candidate R, District 5, Pima County. Interesting.
I can say he does not look very comfortable in front of the camera. I don't feel like the family has really felt that sense of confidence that they're looking for from law enforcement. And you mentioned the basketball game. Look, I'm not one to bash on people. Everybody's got to do their thing. And I certainly don't like to take shots at sheriffs. And I don't mean this as a shot. That's not what I would have done. Right. I think you got to read the room. I think you've got to.
He's going to shoot the sheriff, but not the deputy.
Understand that the family, this is everything to them right now, and you might have to miss that game. So to be able to, and this isn't the only case they have. Like, there's a lot of cases they've got going on, but this is the case that's garnering the national attention. And I would have probably skipped the basketball game.
Well, I think that you make a great point, because this has international intrigue. You've got people from the BBC, from The Guardian, people from Australia, for God's sakes, carrying this every single day, a case out of Tucson, Arizona. So I think that, like you said, you've got to read the room better. But you all, the first point you made really jumps out at me. Mark, you were an unbelievable sheriff. I wish that you could be sheriff forever. I think you are America's sheriff. I believe that. But along with why you were so good was your knowledge of law enforcement. Yes.
America's sheriff. Doesn't he look a little bit naked, though, without a sheriff's star on his breast pocket?
speak two languages, knowing who your constituency is. You also in front of the camera are this good every single time. So when you get elected to that job, you've got to expect that you're going to be the face of that force, and that sheriff's department is not looking great right now because of the speed of the leader. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And look, when it comes time for re-election, I think this case is probably going to come back to haunt him because of how I think that the public has perceived him, and on a national level, there's been a lot of fire at him.
So also understand, this guy is trying to take the sheriff's now job, or is he not? Well, he's a congressional candidate, or is he running for sheriff? It says sherifflamb.com. I don't know. I'm a little confused now what he's running for.
Look, I'm going to give him some cover because when you go into these initial cases, it is not illegal for an adult to disappear. So oftentimes when we go into a case where there's somebody that's not there, it doesn't always start off as an abduction or a kidnapping case. You have to then start to look and see, is there evidence? Is there dementia? Is there mental health issues? Or is there evidence to believe that this was a violent or an abduction or something else?
Right.
Now, you're not going to maybe see that initially. And I don't know how they processed the scene initially, but they did come up with enough to say, yes, this looks like an abduction case, or at least removed without her will. And we've got enough on the scene to tell us that. So we're going to treat this case a little bit differently. So you don't always go into the case thinking this is an abduction.
And I don't want to drag the guy anymore. I do want to talk about the investigative tactics, though, because I'm not an investigator, but I've learned a lot from you, certainly. By the way, go and support his candidacy, sherifflamb.com, sherifflamb.com. You get to the scene, and again, we don't know that it's Savannah Guthrie's mother yet. And she disappeared early in the morning on Sunday morning. And nobody even knows that she's gone until she doesn't show up for Sunday mass, right? Or Sunday service. So
he looks a tiddly bit like Woody Harrelson, but not quite. Not quite, though.
You got a good long time there. That's probably a good 8-10 hours before you even know that she's missing. You get a missing persons report. You go there. So far, this is not an international intrigue story. I get it. But Mark, look, again, I'm kind of a dumb guy when it comes to investigating. You've got blood at her front door. You've got the camera is disabled, and you can see that. Spotlights are knocked out, or they're not working right. And her car is still there, but she's not. At that point, you're now in the investigative mode.
Karun, if you would like to watch it without interruptions, you can kindly get the hell out of here and watch it on their channel.
Would you have...
Thank you.
...released, and again, this isn't about dragging Nanos. I'm just asking you investigatively. Would you have released the house a day or two later? I mean, they said, okay, we're all clear. They took the crime tape down. I don't get it.
No, we've sat on houses for lesser things for days at a time.
Yeah.
And this would have been something that until you were sure that you had all the evidence, you would continue, because this is a very fluid case, Joe. You're getting information, tips, ransom letters. You're getting all this stuff.
Right.
And you've got to be able to process it, evaluate it, to make sure that the information they may be giving you on a ransom letter is legit, because the house has been undisturbed since she left. But I was actually hearing from people that are providing security down there that when they need to use the bathroom, they go inside the house and use the bathroom.
Oh, come on.
The scene has really been lost, and it's been shut, it's been roped off multiple times. Look, everybody, it's easy 2020. Hindsight is 2020.
Right.
But one of the first rules of crime scene is you got to lock down the scene and hold it as long as you can, especially if there's no need for anybody to get back into the home. This is something you want to lock down and keep it locked down so that you can preserve whatever evidence may be there, so that when you do find her, you can also ensure a conviction as well. And whether the crime stops at the kidnapping, or heaven forbid it progresses into what could potentially be a murder, you want to make sure that you preserve all of the evidence that you can. And as far as this being so international and across this country, we're enthralled with true crime. Like, to the point where I've even started a true crime channel on YouTube.
Yeah.
But we love true crime, and we're living this right now. We're all in this investigation together. And so that is part of the intrigue. I've been saying on some of the media, and I don't want to get too far off the path because I want to stay focused on this case, But I wish that we gave missing children cases the same attention nationally and in media-wise and resource-wise as we are giving to this case.
Yes.
Not that I want to take away from this case, but I think that a lot of families are saying to themselves, they did not give me this type of attention, and my child went missing. And I would hope that we would learn something through this case from that.
Well, I hope that we do as well. And that's certainly going to resonate with somebody like me. I've got 5 daughters. I get it, without a doubt. But let's go back to what you said before that. The reason why you've got a YouTube channel on true crime, and the reason why when I interviewed this FBI investigator the other day.
So apparently the sheriff here has his own YouTube channel on true crime. We'll have to give that a gander at a point. Mark Lamb's his name. Sheriff Mark Lamb.
It went absolutely ballistic. People are locked to their devices. I just want an update. When we have something where we just don't know, we have no idea, I think that really grabs our attention. And now here's Savannah Guthrie forced to go on television, do these, or on Instagram and do these videos with her brother and sister. The whole thing is so screwed up. Let's talk about the case and the and by the way, no, please.
Can I tell you something about those videos real quick? I don't mean to interrupt, Joe, because I don't want to get too far away. Those videos, they are purposeful as well. If you're familiar with how we do cases with missing people, those messages were very, they were very purposeful. Not to kill that word, but they were very purposeful. What happened is she says, look, we want to open a line of communication. That's one of the things you do with somebody that's been kidnapped. Number 2, you have an ask of the kidnappers. You say, we need proof of life on this case. So that, and we don't want to see, there's a lot of fake stuff out there. So please give us real proof of life. And the third thing that you will do is humanize the victim, which they did. Both the brother and Savannah, they've done in those videos. They humanize her. She's our mother. We love her. She's a great woman. This is what you do. So while that was, they don't tell you exactly what to say. They were following a script that FBI or law enforcement, we use that script to be able to get this case moving to where we need to get it moving.
It's such a great point. I'm glad and by the way, there's a little bit of a delay between us, so don't worry about it. Just jump in if you want to interrupt. It is Sheriff Mark Lamb, retired Pinal County.
Andy, and all of you, if you don't stop, I will come and find you and destroy your world for trying to destroy my chat. My goodness. They're pretty special. These are special folks here. You got to put a rubber helmet on them. They're not to be trusted alone or with small children and small animals. If you see them out, call the police promptly. They should not be trusted with anybody. Ever. Ever, ever.
Arizona, running for District 5, Republican, great state of Arizona, sherifflame.com. Let's talk about that a little bit further. Mark, is it weird that the ransom note isn't going to the family? It's not even going to the police. The ransom notes are going to the local KOLD Channel 13 or something. What does that tell you that this guy is sending, or these people are sending these notes, if they're real, to a local?
So everyone in the chat doing that, you can go fuck yourself doing that. But you're just going to help me get more views. I don't give a fuck what you say. Thanks for helping me.
TV station.
So I'm a little dubious as to whether they are real, first of all, Joe.
All right.
We've already had one where somebody got arrested. There's supposedly been some information in there, and I've heard a little bit behind the scenes, and I don't want to divulge. But there's been information in those letters that would indicate that these might be.
It must be a bot attack. People are out to get me in the world. What do you know? I'm just that important. But these guys have the IQ of a room temperature. Room temperature IQ. What to expect with them.
Legit. And you have to treat them as such if you don't know for sure they're not.
Right.
You've got to treat them as legit. Part of the reason they may be sending them to the media is because it provides a level of protection. The freedom of press is probably going to give a little bit of buffer. I don't know that the press would share an IP address or share information on a source as readily as maybe the family would be able to immediately. The FBI is going to be on it, looking for the IP, looking for any information they can to track down where those are coming from. So that could be one of the reasons. What is odd to me, well, I was asked yesterday, what is odd to me is the $6 million figure.
Right.
And they said, why? And I said, well, why not 5? Why not 10? It's just weird that somebody would pick $6 million as that number. Some of the information I've heard that is information coming from in the house. I'll tell you, one of them was like, I think iPhone, watch charger. I don't want to say what the other one was. So
So I don't even know how to do subscribers only mode though. I have to look up how to do it. Where do you do it? Block mode doesn't work because they just keep on repeating themselves. So how do you put it into subscribers only mode? Interesting. Never thought I would have had this problem. Let's see. So someone needs to tell me, Ellie, how do you put it on subscriber only mode? But how do you do it? It doesn't help me just to tell me. How do you do it? Yeah.
There was enough information for them to say we better take this serious. So I don't know whether it's been vetted to be true, but they have to err on the side of caution.
It is Sheriff Mark Levin. Sheriff, I've got to ask you, because my brain's going a million miles a minute trying to figure out, if I were a bad guy, and I'm not, so I can't really get into that mindset. If I were going to be holding somebody for ransom, the first thing I would do is show signs of life. Why? I wouldn't think I would be getting paid if I can't prove that I still have the person alive. Why do you think we haven't gotten a sign of life yet? And I'm not asking you, is she dead or alive? I'm just wondering, if you really want to get that money, and Savannah just said in the most recent one, we will pay. Why wouldn't you give me something that shows me that she's still alive?
Well, this is why I struggle to believe that these ransom letters are true. That's why it gives me pause, is because you're right. You would show proof of life. Say, look, we have it. So that would make them want to give the money should there be an actual abduction, like if this was legit, they would want to pay the money because they've seen the proof of life. If you were scamming, if you were just a really good scammer, which there are, and you were taking advantage of this situation, you would be unable to show proof of life. So you're going to try to muscle them into making the payment and then tell them you're going to drop her off in a safe location. They didn't say they would drop her off safely. They just said they would drop her off in a safe location somewhere in Tucson. And I think that's a big distinction. So that gives me pause. We deal with a lot of cartel stuff. You get a lot of cartel abductions, and they are much more apt to show like a proof of life. And this doesn't have any of those signs to me, those tells. And I've discussed it with other people that have dealt with them as well. This doesn't feel like that. This really feels there's some familiarity in how this went about. And that's always going to be kind of how you're going to look at first anyway. Over 90% of cases like this are done by somebody who's familiar with the family or even a family member, heaven forbid. So that's going to be where you're going to really kind of start your targeting in that area.
Mark, as you were speaking, Savannah Guthrie dropped another video, and you haven't seen this. I haven't seen this. I will try to edit it in later, but I'll let you hear it as we do this interview live. And if you don't mind, give me your thoughts as soon as this is done. It's about a minute and a half long. Tell me what you think about this, because the last video that we just saw, a lot of people started questioning whether Nancy Guthrie was alive, for the simple reason that they were like, we want to be at peace, or we want to celebrate with her. They didn't ask for proof of life last time. This is what Savannah Guthrie dropped. This is less than 30 minutes ago.
Hi there, everybody. I wanted to come on and just share a few thoughts as we enter into another week of this nightmare. I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for all of the prayers and the love that we have felt, my sister and brother and I, and that our mom has felt. Because we believe that somehow, some way, she is feeling these prayers, and that God is lifting her even in this moment and in this darkest place. We believe our mom is still out there. We need your help. Law enforcement is working tirelessly around the clock, trying to bring her home, trying to find her. She was taken and we don't know where. And we need your help. So I'm coming on just to ask you, not just for your prayers, but no matter where you are, even if you're far from Tucson, if you see anything, if you hear anything, if there's anything at all that seems strange to you, that you report to law enforcement. We are at an hour of desperation and we need your help.
She just posted that a half an hour ago. Mark, what do you think?
So the initial pleas were to the kidnappers, the abductors. This plea, because that's gone nowhere. So now this plea is to the public. And this is really to somebody who may have information, who may know the people that are responsible for what's going on. And you're hoping that you can reach them emotionally to be able to strike a chord within somebody that might have information that normally probably wouldn't give it up, that may be getting concerned they don't want to get roped in with the crime. So I think this is actually more for the, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out, but it's more for the public. And it's really probably targeted more to those who might have intimate knowledge of what's going on and trying to strike a chord with those people.
She uses the word desperation, Sheriff. I mean, obviously she's very frustrated. She's not getting the answers that maybe she thinks that she needs. And certainly she doesn't have her mom back, so I understand where she's coming from. But to use the word desperation, what does that tell you?
Well, desperation means that they haven't had a lot of hope, which means they haven't been given maybe there's no leads. I don't know. I would like to believe that the video they recovered from the gas station and some of the other businesses that they've been approaching.
What I would be fascinated to learn is, what does Savannah think about the son-in-law, her brother-in-law, being a suspect? Does she not think that's true at all? Now, according to that website, which may or may not be legit, they were saying that they were thinking about suing Megan Banfield for this. But I'd be so curious what Savannah thinks about that. It's like, okay, do you think that he's in on it? Do you think your sister's in on it? What do you think? I don't know.
That maybe they've gotten some video information that has given them some leads to work off of. When the agencies kind of go quiet, it leads me to believe that they're working leads and they don't want to disturb they don't want to rustle up the weeds too much, because they don't want the suspect to go quiet on them. And so I think that they've probably got something there. And maybe this is to make them feel comfortable. Maybe they're closer than we think. There's a lot at play. I'm kind of, I'm using some speculation here on many ends, but there's a lot that could be going on.
It is Sheriff Mark Lamb, retired, Pinal County, Arizona, running for District 5 Republican, great state of Arizona. Go to sherifflamb.com and help him win that seat. Andy Biggs is running for governor of Arizona. That's why that seat is going to be available. Let's talk about what they didn't take with them when they took her. Didn't take the Apple Watch, which is synced to her pacemaker. That's a problem. Didn't take her medication. She's got a heart condition. That's a problem. Mark, does that tell you that that's somebody who knows her, or that's somebody who doesn't know her? Because if she were conscious, and I have no idea what her condition was, when they...
This is a very good question by Joe. I like Joe as an interviewer here. He's no BS, straight to the point, no rambling, no waffling, as the kids would say. I like it.
When they left the house. But if she's conscious, she's going to say, I need my heart pills. I need my pacemaker is connected to my watch. What do you make of them leaving those vital things there? Anything?
Well, Joe, like I already mentioned, over 90% of these cases are going to be people who are familiar with the person or family, somebody close. And so that automatically points that direction. Then you find the camera was removed from the front door. This is a very dark area. There's no lighting, no street lights. So somebody is going to have to know, okay, I've got to disable this. There was a floodlight on the side of the house that we saw was broken. We saw that they were there for a period of time. What looks like could be 30 minutes they were there in the residence. So to me, it shows a lot of familiarity with the residents, with probably her as well, knowing enough to know that she has a pacemaker to leave. Obviously, you're going to leave the watch and the phone behind because that's how people can track you.
Right.
So that's kind of, that one really isn't that big of a deal. That's not a surprise. A good criminal or somebody who's planned this out would leave that behind.
Yes.
Then there's, but the meds, you know, maybe they did take some of it. Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know that anybody really knows how many were in the bottle. So maybe
That's
they
a really,
took
hey,
some
Mark,
of it.
that's a really good point. I've heard nobody say they could have grabbed enough for a few days.
That is a good point. I mean, why not just take the whole bottle unless you're trying to throw him off the track or something, right? I don't know. It kind of seems like there was a struggle and there was no plan to keep her alive, it almost seems like. But I don't know. I'm just talking out my butt when I say that.
You're thinking that this would be over quickly. That's actually a very good point. But without it now, and if they don't get it refilled somewhere, they've had her for more than a week and 3 days or something now. I mean, or a week and a day. I mean, we're talking about what she just said, desperation for sure. Why haven't they said excluded anybody yet? Mark, I got to tell you, man, and I don't know anything from anything other than watching you on Live PD and seeing your true crime stories, and you're the best in the business. Why not exclude everybody in the family now? That really jumps out at me. Does it jump out at you?
Yeah, I've been saying this from the beginning. What my job would be is I would sit down with the family and say, this is nothing personal, but we are trying to find your mother, and we are going to have to start where we think the crime could potentially be. We have to vet all of you. We need to make sure we need your phones. We need to make sure that we can clear you as potential leads or suspects. That would have been one of my first things. Now, I would have cast a wide net at the same time.
Yeah.
I would have made sure that we're not letting her get any further than what we needed. Worked with the state partners. Make sure that we checked all the LPRs, the license plate readers, flock cameras in the area, gas stations. Those would have been things that we would have been doing within the first as quickly as we could. So 12, 24 hours, we would have been canvassing those areas. We'd have been going to neighbors, asking them to see if they had any videos. They would have had to have passed a lot of houses in a vehicle before they would have got there. And there's only a couple intersections they would have actually come out on. So you would have been able to really focus in on those intersections and cameras out of those intersections. There's a lot of things that I would have worked on, but I would have, going back to your question, I would have started in an effort to clear the family and put it out to the media. Hey, we have extensively looked in, and we can confidently say they are not involved. Or we can say we have suspicions that we're looking into right now. And I think it eliminates a lot of doubt. But look, we're going, I got to be honest and fair. We're going back now a week, and we have had a lot of information that these guys are not privy to as the investigation unfolds.
Right.
I'm just talking just as what we probably would have done, but obviously it's easy to say sitting here looking back a week.
Mark, do you take anything away from, I'll give you an example. My mom doesn't live 4 miles from me, but if she did, I wouldn't have her Uber to my house. I just found it to be very strange that she took an Uber 4 miles away. Now, they, or the son-in-law, whomever, dropped her off, they say, at 9:30 or whatever, after spending about 4 hours at her daughter, Annie, I think it's Annie's house. As an investigator, do you go, why would you have mom Uber 4 miles to your house?
Well, what do you think, chat? Why would that happen? Were they drinking and they didn't want to drive drunk, even though it's only 4 miles? But again, I don't know.
Yeah, a little bit. You know, look, there's a lot of reasons. Maybe they were busy and they were coming home at a certain time and they wanted to be there when they got home. I don't know. There might be some reasons, but it is a little strange that you wouldn't just drive and pick her up. And then obviously dropping her off is part of the reason why you would have to look at them, because they are the last person to see her. Joe, when we investigate a crime, we look at means, opportunity, and motive. The people with the most means and opportunity are oftentimes family or somebody familiar with the house who comes over, a caretaker, something, landscaper, any of those types of things are going to start to be people with maybe means or opportunity.
I mean, I don't think it's a stupid question. I think usually you would think the family would just pick her up to go wherever you need to go, right? I mean, that's what I would think.
Then you look towards motive. Look at bank accounts. Who's on the insurance policies? Who would have a reason to? Look back at messages. Find hers. Who is messaging her? Was she having a conflict with somebody? Was somebody else messaging her, threatening messages? There's a lot you're going to start to unfold initially. And but it is strange to me that they would have had her Uber over to the house initially.
Yeah, I find that odd. It's Sheriff Mark Lamb. Go to sherifflamb.com, sherifflamb.com. Support his candidacy for Arizona 5. As we're looking at this case, as you said, as I said, it's 8 days, 9 days old now. At this point, are you, is your gut as a law enforcement officer going, we don't find her soon, there's no way she's still with us? Because again, no sign of life, doesn't have the heart medication. The pacemaker, I think, was synced up to the phone or to her watch to make sure that it was regulated the right way. But are you starting to fear for her well-being at this point? You got to be at 8 days, no?
Joe, every day that goes by, that the chances of finding her alive diminish.
And I've said that before too. The only thing I would say to give people hope would be Elizabeth Smart was found alive 9 months later. Now, granted, she was being essayed and tortured for that 9 months, but she did live. Difference though, teenager, 15 years old, much more full of life. 84 years old, not quite the same. So.
And I think the longer you go, the more they diminish. And we're going to find out. I mean, tonight there's supposedly a deadline. If this is a legit ransom letter, they've talked about a consequential deadline tonight. I don't know what that means consequentially, whether it costs you more money or whether it's consequences as far as her health. There is, I think that every day goes by. I don't want to be the guy that says it, but every day that goes by, I would be, if they were to find her alive at this point, Joe, I'd be shocked.
Thus the desperation in Savannah Guthrie's latest video that just happened as we're doing this interview. Let me ask you about cooperating and working with the FBI. I'm guessing that as the sheriff of Pinal County, you had an occasion to work with the FBI. How does that work? Do they take over a case like this? Is the FBI sort of going full steam ahead behind the scenes and Nanos is still sort of the face of the operation? How does that work?
So missing persons is oftentimes an FBI case because sometimes it involves cross jurisdiction, interstate jurisdictions. So they are very good at this. This is why you involve the FBI. They have specialized units for kidnapping. They have specialized units for processing cell phones, computers. They have an access to programs and technology that we don't in local law enforcement. Obviously, we take the case, but it's very common that you would involve the FBI at an early stage. And in what turns out to be an abduction or a kidnapping case, you're going to try to get them involved as soon as you can, because they're going to be able to provide a lot of help in a case like this.
You know, it's really frustrating, Mark, and we'll end it in a few minutes. I know you got a lot of people waiting to talk to you. Thank you for always making time for my show and for me. Thank you. What jumps out at me is that we've got the best technology we've ever had in history right now. The best. I mean, I guess there's some box that the FBI can bring in and get every text message, everything that's ever happened in that house over the last course of time. That's awesome. But with all the cameras and all the drones and all the technology and all the everything, now you alluded to this earlier, there's only one or two ways in and out of this neighborhood, so that's going to limit your ability to have this. And it was 12:30 or 1 o'clock in the morning, whatever it was. So you're not going to have a lot of people on the road. But with all the technology, do we really not have anything other than the Circle K video? I mean, honestly, does that strike you as weird that in this day and age, we've got very little technology whatsoever available to us to help this
Joe,
case?
Look, I'm a constitutionalist. I think that the least amount of government influence in our lives, you're seeing more and more traffic cameras. You're seeing more flock cameras, axon cameras that are at intersections, and they're very useful tools. You're seeing more and more license plate readers, also very useful tools. The amount of cameras at people's houses, it is very difficult to get away with a crime, which is why I believe eventually they will find that missing piece of evidence on somebody's home camera, on a business camera, somebody that maybe doesn't realize they have it yet, or maybe a video footage of them casing the place prior to this actually occurring. Because this is not something you would just do on a spur of the moment. This might be something you planned ahead of time, especially as how it's been going.
And again, if it was a family member, you wouldn't need to do that because you're already aware of it. Now, in terms of the casing part, maybe it is the person that Brian Entin was talking to. That woman was coming forward with evidence that she said people were kind of casing out the area. Maybe that could be involved. We don't know yet.
This leads me to believe that there was some pre-planning as well, which would also open it up. So you're not only going to go back to the day that she disappeared, you're going to go back days before that, maybe a week before that, to see if a vehicle had been in the area over and over again, casing the place. So this is how you start to expand the investigation. But you're right, with everything that is out there, I'm surprised that there hasn't been some piece of evidence that has broken this case open, all the phones, all the computer stuff, everything that we have. But at the same time, I'm also a believer in our ability to not have government interference in our lives, or as minimal as possible.
Well, I think you know that I agree with you on that. I'm a constitutionalist as well, and my privacy is something that I really want to hold dear. Having said that, my point is we've got a bunch of technology out there, whether you and I like it or not. I'm just a little surprised, as you are, that we don't have all this stuff. So let me finish with this, because you just hit on.
Well, Americans don't really have privacy anymore. A lot of people don't know this, but in the 1970s, it was considered a breach of your privacy to get drug tested for a job. Now it's just standard operating procedure. But back in the 70s, it was actually a breach of your privacy.
Something that's really, really important. I don't think somebody shows up that night and does all of that without having some knowledge, some prior knowledge of the layout, how to get in, how to get out, how to maybe avoid the technology that's out there. Maybe you don't go by the Circle K. Maybe you stay away from other Ring cameras that are in the same neighborhood. So does that go back to possible family? And does it also go to possible, jobbers are there? And I'll make this point. I think you've seen the overhead shots of this house, right? It's a pure white, almost brand new roof. Maybe somebody was there doing roofing contracting. Do you start tracking down who's done any work at the house? Investigatively, do you have to consider all of that and go back how far? Do you go back a week? Do you go back 3 weeks? Do you go back a month? How do you deal with that part of it?
Look, everybody you have to look into. You got to clear them. The pool people, they were looking in the septic tank yesterday, which leads me to believe they got some piece of information that would make them think that they would look into the septic tank. So there is a lot of, you're going to have to, the longer this goes, the more you have to spread that out. But like I said in the beginning, you cast a very wide net. Everybody who had access to the house or who might have a reason to have kidnapped her or abducted her, you've got to look into. As far as the workers at the house, I wouldn't lean towards them, but you certainly would like to vet them out and make sure that you can clear them. Part of the reason I say that is because
I think Joe molded his voice over the years so that now this is just his voice. He probably had to kind of craft it in the beginning, and now he has become the crafted, molded voice.
What is the motivation there? What is their reasoning for that? This typically goes back to, and I know people hate to hear this because when it's such an emotional case, when people get mad, you're like, how can you blame the family? It's just the way it is. Our job is to find her, and our job is to hold people accountable who commit crimes, who victimize other people. We have to take the feelings and the emotion out, or else we won't find the people. We won't have success in closing cases.
Right.
And so we have to look at everything very objectively based on the evidence. And oftentimes, and still to me, that still leads back to somebody who is very familiar with the house and likely family.
Mark, gut feeling, and I'll let you go because I know you've got people waiting. Gut feeling, did they get her because it's Savannah Guthrie's mother, or they got her and it just happens to be Savannah Guthrie's mother?
No, I think she has something. I think that she doesn't have something to do with that. Let me make that very clear.
Her being the daughter is somehow something to do with it.
I think that her being who she is plays a role in this. I think that people knew that there was access to money.
So if it plays a role, that was going to be my next question. What's the motive? To punish or money? It doesn't seem like they wanted money, or it doesn't seem like they're acting like they want it right now. Now, Pat, the profiler, said apparently that it was an abduction gone wrong and they ended up killing her maybe, but they weren't supposed to. It just kind of went off the rails. That's possible. Because again, it doesn't really help them. It doesn't really help them to have killed her. If your goal was money, how does it help you to kill her? It doesn't. Now, if your goal was to kill her, then none of this applies. Then it was just, okay, it doesn't matter. And then maybe those other notes are really just people trying to exploit the situation that have nothing to do with the case.
She makes a good salary. They probably thought that this would be something that they could leverage into money. Clearly, there's a reason for it. Money, or you just have a real grudge with somebody, but that would have already you would be able to vet that out through
Yes.
messages, through Savannah's messages. That would be vetted out a lot easier than something done for money. So yeah, I think that whoever did this,
Plays a
if they
role.
did indeed kidnapped her, that they knew who she was, and I think it plays a role in the motive of why they did it.
Mark, incredible information, man. I think some of the best that we've heard so far on this. Thank you for that. Go and check out his candidacy. District 5 Republican, great state of Arizona. He's running for any big seat. SheriffLamb.com. It's former Pinal County Sheriff Mark Lamb. Sheriff, thanks a million. Appreciate you.
And the true crime is at Lamb Investigations. So we'll probably do something on this case and give our 2 cents of what's going on with it in a day or two. So
Yeah, we'll check it out when he does. As for me, my stream keeps on like freezing in and out here. It's obnoxious. I gotta like turn this computer off and on or something. Don't like it when this. What is that? I'm about to write a strongly worded letter to StreamYard. When you pay the premium for frickin' the most up-to-date internet, faster internet you have, and then you get freezes, unacceptable. And I'll tell you, chat, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So I'll give StreamYard a piece of my mind and say, dude, the hell's wrong with your service? I pay this amount a month, and if it's best internet you can get, make it work. No excuses. Or if not, you're going to give me the month for free. And you'll be surprised when you say things like that, how often you get what you want. Maybe. Well, I'm going to make sure after this stream's over, turn it off and on. We'll see what happens if I even click refresh. I might go away, though. I don't know what happens. No, I shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do it. That's right, Teresa. You know it. Now, sometimes what happens is I've talked to StreamYard about it before. Sometimes if you're not in incognito mode, it can go off the rails. Sometimes if you don't turn your computer off and on right before you go on a stream, it goes off the rails. You never know. Uncle Lester, thank you very much. Good business guidance, Jared. Good luck. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. Those of you who are still here, make sure you like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. We've had an eventful day. Got some bot attacks, which was entertaining. But outside of that, not really that much new news out there in terms of this case. More questions than anything, honestly. It just kind of makes your head spin, doesn't it? It almost seems like someone was just bored and they were like, you know what? What can I do to kind of stimulate my boredom? Oh yeah, let's go abduct this person here. And I would be asking Savannah, do you think your sister and brother-in-law are involved? That's what I would say. And the problem with those other people was you can't block them. You block them and they are just like, what's that thing in Greek mythology? When you cut off the heads and more heads grow? What is that called? It's from Hercules. The Satanic Olympics. I have not watched the Olympics. I appreciate you, Betty. Medusa's close. Medusa's the head of snakes. But there's another thing that, like in the Disney movie Hercules, you chop off the heads, but then more heads grow. I can't remember what it's called. The Hydra. That's more like what it is. Amanda and Regimen for the win. Very good. Yeah, I would like to talk to Savannah, but Savannah's not going to be talking to anybody as long as this case is still open. I mean, one of these days, though, we're going to get something, I think. Something's going to be found, maybe. Or can you believe how big this case would be if she's found alive? Oh, my God. That would be the biggest case. That would be the biggest news ever. Starlink? Oh, no. Is that the stuff that you can read people's minds with, or is that something else? What's the thing called where you can read people's minds that Elon Musk is working on? I'm not really looking forward to it. I use Chrome, Cat. No AOL. No dial-up here. We stream on the highest internet possible. Do you think we're amateurs here? Of course not. Yeah, we did watch one with Jesus. Unfortunately, I didn't really find it that informative. Now, the body language panel or the behavior panel, they haven't gone over this at all. They did something about Candace Owens I saw recently, but they didn't talk about this. Neuralink, that's the one I'm thinking of. That would not be a good thing if that thing comes out. Oh my goodness. We're all toast if that's the case. I mean, that invention has the possibility to ruin the world, ruin relationships, ruin the world. Oh my goodness. Maybe it's a Freudian slip there, Bear. Nero, the cruelest Roman emperor, who apparently played the flute as Rome burned. Interesting. That's all we can do. Hope and pray. I mean, we're kind of at a make or break point with the case where it's Monday. By midway through this week, it's either there's going to be a big development or the case might kind of start dwindling from the public's eye, honestly. Is it going to go one way or the other? But what do you think? Yeah, newborns chipped, huh? What would they be doing with that? Tracking them? Well, if it has nothing to do with reading minds, then what is it? I think that's how Rogan has described it, and that's what I thought. All right, Uncle Lester. Let's hope you're right about that. Yeah. We'll see. But all right, everybody. It's about time to rock and roll here. I appreciate all the super chats, likes, and subscriptions. You can become a member of the channel to help support the channel too. And I'll be back again tomorrow night. Yeah, seems like Trump did not have something when he said what he said. But not surprised. Not surprised. But thank you, everyone. I'm going to sign off here. But I'll be back again tomorrow night, everybody. So Danielle, Kat, Ellie, Jolly, all the rest of the OGs, Heather, Lisa, Eva, Bella, Layla, Maureen, Robin, Brenda, Caroline. Can't forget sweet Caroline. So many now, it's hard to keep track. But I guess you'd call that a good problem, right? Luxury problems. So I love having some luxury problems. Thank you very much, everybody. And I'll be back again tomorrow night.